What's going on, everybody? Do not adjust your channel.
Good evening.
It is, in fact, a little more brown in the Mount Chan channel. What's up, you all? This is the average Chad with the imposter Mountain Chad taking over for today's stream. And welcome. So today we're going to be talking about one of the most mind-blowing topics out there. Are we living in a simulation? From Elon Musk to Nick Bostrom, some of the brightest minds have been talking about the possibility that we are in fact living in a computer simulation.
Whoa! Exactly. What does that mean? Making yourself
simulation. Simulation. Simulation.
All right.
Hell yeah, that intro got me fucking hyped.
Hey, remember those days? Man,
yeah.
You were so much skinnier, man.
Hell yeah.
I think I was approximately as fat.
Nah, though, you look so much slimmer. I don't know.
Oh, it's freaking awesome.
Remember those days? Ooh.
Hell yeah.
We've been through a lot.
That was a long time ago.
It feels like it. What, 2.5 years ago, right?
Jesus.
Something like that. 3 years, 2.5, 3 years. Actually, now it's about 3 years. Oh my
God,
it's been that long?
Yeah. In that Mountain Chad clip, I was like, fuck, I forgot that existed.
Yeah, when we took over your channel, that was just funny.
That was great. Yeah, Imposter Mountain Chad.
Yeah, it was
great. Specialist.
We had our specialist.
Whenever it was doing the specialist thing.
Absolutely, guys. We're back. Back together again.
It's been too long.
Yeah.
It has. A lot's going on. Lots evolved with AI.
Tell me about it, man.
Well, it's evolved, but I still think it's the thing is we all talk about AI. It's large language models that people are thinking about. We're still too far off from that, but machine learning is getting. That's the part nobody talks about, and it's getting a little crazy.
And it makes you wonder if we even need it. You know, everyone talks about AGI. I don't think we need it. I think LLMs are already so advanced that, especially if you can get a trained LLM for one specific goal,
right? It's
going to be world-class knowledgeable in whatever that specific goal is.
Yeah, I think if they do, I think that's a problem, and it's not just one thing. If they do the approach of the machine learning, which it's just one task, it does one thing only. If to try to do it that way, I think that'll be the ticket. But it's trying to make it. They're trying to push AGI so much that they're trying to make it where it's just it does everything. But there's no need for that.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I'm glad that there's so much speculative hype because we, the common man, get to benefit from this. So that's the only reason we have access to it today. And thank God for the Chinese. I'll be the first one to say, because they're the only ones, yes, releasing open source models still.
Mm-hmm.
It almost feels like everybody, even if you don't have your own LLM rig, everyone should download DeepSeek just in case you make a rig one day, and just in case between now and then it stops being available.
Everything gets locked down.
No, yeah, absolutely, and it's one of those things that but I think it's still right now. It's still too much of it's just an autocomplete. I think what the tech guys wanted to do is still too far off. It's almost like a disconnect. Like the people that actually know about tech are like, okay, yeah, it's getting there, but it's not what they say. I think there's a bubble because I
Right.
think something like $3 out of every $10 is actually being sent to some type of like um, chat GPT type LLM company. But right
Mhm.
now it's like it's the amount of money that's been given to them is appreciated to about $2 trillion to every single of those companies, and none of them together have broken over 2 trillion. So there's when it comes to money, well, it's kind of like the same bubble as you would do with the housing market. I think it's
Mhm.
going to become a disaster where obviously they're just going to keep all the money.
I don't. Well, it's not even that they're. It's not even that they're getting any money to keep. The same couple of companies just handing the same check around. It really is the classic analogy of two economists walk into the forest. One guy says to the other guy, "I'll pay you $1,000 to eat that shit." And the other guy says, "Of course." And he eats it, pays him $1,000. They walk a little further. The other guy goes, "Hey, look, a pile of shit. I'll pay you to eat that pile of shit." And he gives the same $1,000 back to his buddy. And then the other guy turns to him and goes, "Wait, we both ate shit and neither of us are any richer than we were before." And the other guy goes, "No, but we made $2,000 worth of economic growth."
Right.
Yeah, but the money that has been invested through like 401ks and stuff that's a different story. Like they were doing with like real estate, but that's what I'm saying. There is a bubble,
Mhm.
another tech bubble,
Mhm.
because there are like we know how much money Nvidia is getting, right?
Yeah.
And right now,
Yep.
the amount of money that they've been given is to an appreciation of over 2 trillion for Nvidia. They haven't. Usually, you will have to make 2 trillion, that much money, and so they're not. So it's more like a fever dream where money's being pumped into those things that
Yes.
can and probably will create a bubble where they're still going to keep everything, all the investments on it and all the technology, but people with 401ks, investment portfolios are gonna crash.
It's gonna crash them. It
I don't
always
think so.
does. It always
Nope.
the taxpayer always takes the hit.
It's not going to crash anytime soon.
Oh, it's not gonna be anytime soon, but it will. It may come.
The only way it crashes is if we somehow discover evidence that AGI is impossible. And additionally, that if the average person ceases to be interested in LLMs and wanting to use them, but that's never going to happen. We already live in a world where tens, if not hundreds of millions of people are relying on LLMs every single day. We live in a world where these companies are willing, and the VC funds, the hedge funds, and the banks, they're willing to lose any amount of money because not having access to this technology, not getting a slice of the pie, no company can afford not to have a slice of this,
Yeah.
which means it does not matter. That's what I talked about in one of my recent videos.
Yep.
They were willing to lose $9 billion a year on Uber. Do you think they're not willing to piss away $100 billion on artificial intelligence, which will
There it is.
completely change what it means to be a human being?
There it is.
Every
Yep.
company involved is writing blank checks, and they don't give a shit if the money is just put into a pile and burned. It means nothing to them because getting any piece of what's coming is worth it.
Yeah. It's just a matter of how long.
It won't crash unless we find out that what's coming is nothing.
It's nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the fact that like Sam Altman and others of his ilk are all at the same time, they've got this duality going on where they're saying, well, AI is dangerous. It's going to be dangerous. It's going to be dangerous. But at the same time, they're pumping money in.
Well, it's like a gun is dangerous. Is
Mhm.
it useful? Is it useful? Yes. A
Mhm.
car is dangerous. A car is far more dangerous than a gun. That's just statistically proven. A vehicle that you're driving every day is far more dangerous than owning a firearm.
Yeah.
So that's why it's like, yeah, but it's still very useful.
And again, they can't afford to not be involved. The risks are completely irrelevant. Nobody involved, including us, the end user, nobody gives a shit about the risk because the upside is just too great. And this is one of those scenarios where, and I think people generally do a bad job with this, but we as like a species need to just cowboy the fuck up and ride this wave successfully and not get knocked down and dragged through the coral. Because if we can right this and keep this ship afloat for the next 10 or 20 years until this maps out, then we could have, you know, like a utopic society almost. But in the meantime, between now and then, hundreds of millions of people are going to lose their jobs. What it means to be a human being is going to fundamentally change.
Yes.
And we may along the way discover that AGI is like a fundamentally impossible thing, in which case there will be a massive correction in terms of the viability of this as an investment. Also, this model that everyone's gotten used to, paying $15 a month, that's going to end. It's going to end real soon.
It's got to stop.
The people I know who are running these LLMs metered, who are using it for work every day, they're already incurring like 4 and 3 and 4 figure bills per month, and that's with them sort of like consciously restricting their usage. So the true cost of this, if you were truly paying for what you're using, almost nobody could afford. So all the users would be either overnight forced to pay 50 times what you're paying now or stop using it.
Yeah, and I think we're also being used as data mining, of course. We're paying them to, you know, train their models, and so I think that's why it's so cheap, because it's an easy way of, one, getting people used to it, and two, we're doing the work for them. No longer do they have to go through and look for all these data sources. We're giving them all the data they need, all the sources, all the conversation, all the practical uses for it. You know, so it's one of those things that it's we're paying them to do the job of like thousands of people who have to go and data mine all this, you know, this data.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also, we're sort of guinea pigs for this system.
Yes.
The people who are building it can't really know what they need to know about it until they put it in the hands of a couple million strangers.
Yeah.
And then I feel like they're sort of reflecting on our interactions in order to help guide them, because it's still a black box.
Yeah.
They put the ingredients in, it comes out the other end. They're not really sure why it is the way it is.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the scary part.
Absolutely.
They don't understand how it works. It just does.
There might be there's a few people who do, but we're talking about like 180 IQ autists who really can't carry a conversation with a regular human.
And who can absolutely break down the schematics behind it all.
Yeah, and there's like 100 of those people in the world, and they're all already working for Google or Microsoft or one of these companies.
Yeah, they talk in binary to each other. So
there.
And they're making $800,000 a year base salary.
Yeah. And they don't use any of that money. They live, you know.
Yeah, they have no hobbies.
They have no hobbies. They don't have no cars.
They wear the same sweatpants every day.
Yeah.
I know a couple of those guys.
Yeah. Old school autists, before autism became cool.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, before it became trending. So, all right. What do we got tonight? We got a good one for our main event. We got Tom Bilyeu and our boy Rudyard, right? But before we get to that, what do y'all think about mass surveillance and the flock cameras?
Well, we've been under mass surveillance for a long time. We carry Google phones with Google on it. We've been under mass surveillance.
That's true. I mean, anybody who believes that we're not already tracked and cataloged and analyzed in every conceivable way, you haven't been paying attention.
Haven't been paying attention at all.
It's really the same with what I want is for them to actually start using it in a useful fucking way. I want them to start using it against our enemies, and start like the idea that we would have tens of millions of undocumented people in one of the most surveilled nations in human history. It's like this system only exists as an opposition to the citizens.
Yeah.
Well, it really.
You say that.
Yes.
Let's segue.
Well,
let's segue into the usage of one of the newest inventions that have been rolled out: the flock cameras. Keep track of the flock of humans, right?
Who's in charge? Who's one of the who's the people in the top who are who made that? And they also made Pegasus, It's linked to the genocider. So there you go.
Let's take a look here at how they've been using this. We got one story out of Colorado, and then we got one story out of Georgia. All right, so here's Colorado.
A Denver woman says that she was wrongfully accused of theft after police tracked her car using flock cameras.
Now, the camera system has been a point of controversy over privacy concerns, but it's been a praised tool by police who've used it successfully to track down suspects and make arrests.
But after the system was used to accuse her of a crime, one woman is warning everyone to have cameras of their own. Fox 31's Anna Kuhn sat down with her and has her story tonight. Anna?
This is crazy.
Hey guys, well, the Columbine Valley police chief has since voided the court summons against this woman, but she says she never should have been accused in the first place. She says her car was never at the address where that package was stolen.
You know we have cameras in that town, and you can't get a breath of fresh air in or out of that place without us knowing, correct?
On September 27th, the Columbine Valley police officer came to Chrisanna Elser's door and issued her a summons to appear in court, accusing her of stealing a $25 package in the town of Bomar. The officer said he had doorbell video of the theft and had tracked her car in the area using flock cameras.
It is locked in. There is zero doubt. I wouldn't have come here unless I was 100% sure. 100%.
The only problem with this case, she wasn't there, and she had the evidence to prove it. Dash camera video from her car, a log of her location from Google Maps, and doorbell video of her walking into her tailor's house.
Now, isn't it crazy that you have to build this kind of case for yourself to defend yourself?
Yeah.
You have to prove you're innocent rather than being proven guilty.
Yeah. No,
Prove
I
your
wouldn't be
innocence.
here. I wouldn't be here if I was 100% sure. That man never saw anything. He was just handed. No, there's no investigation on it. It was just like, yep, okay.
Yeah, the camera said so.
When the package was stolen.
He just kept telling me that any evidence I had wasn't worth it.
Because you have not been honest with me, so I'm not going to extend you any courtesy of showing you a video when I don't need.
But I can show you videos.
No, you cannot.
After a few weeks, Elser was able to get in touch with the police chief, who wrote her in an email, quote, "After reviewing evidence you have provided, nicely done, by the way, we have voided the summons that was issued."
Nicely done. So she gets a pat on the head.
Yeah, nicely done, because you were going to go to jail.
Holy
$25
shit.
package. So I guess in that neighborhood, there's such low crime that this is what a detective will show up for.
Yeah.
For a $25 package. That must be nice. That must be a good neighborhood.
Yeah.
You would think that we're using that flock camera for anything else. Just literally take anything.
Keep track of your flock.
But Elser says she shouldn't have needed to prove her innocence and worries flock cameras can paint a picture police will rely too heavily on.
They need to be used properly and be used with caution in a conversation versus we're now going to use this to accuse anybody and everybody.
Boom.
We did reach out to the police chief for comment, but didn't hear back.
Of course not.
Meantime, Elser is advising all of her neighbors to start collecting their own digital evidence. She says you never know when you might need it. Live in Littleton, Anna Kuhn, Fox 31.
Interesting, Anna.
So,
Thank you.
what was most interesting is, was there a license plate?
That's
Or
what it
just a-
supposedly scans.
Really? So I'm like, they just scanned the license plate or just claim just the car? Oh, we have a car. Like, apparently you're the only one with the make, model, and color of this vehicle in the entire United States of America.
Yeah.
Why did that woman have so many pieces of evidence about her location? I'm starting to think that's really suspicious.
Well, no, I have a buddy of mine that has the same thing. I have a buddy of mine that's
Just drop some bodies out there.
No. See, Google, okay, if you
Yes.
use Google Maps, it'll track your movements already.
Mine
does that already.
Mine's turned on.
Yeah.
Mine's turned on. Yeah.
And then my buddy has his own dash cam as
Yeah.
well.
I have my own dash cam as well. And mine,
And
it shoots front and back.
yeah, and almost everybody has a one of those door cams.
Yep. And I have
So-
2 cameras right here in my apartment.
Yeah.
Or more, actually. But yeah.
I only have a camera in
We're
the toilet.
surveying ourselves.
Yes. You're gonna have to now, because apparently you're not gonna make it.
Right. All right. So here's the second story of misuse with these cameras.
New at 4, Sandy Springs has terminated an officer after he allegedly used the city's cameras and surveillance system for his own personal gain. Channel 2's Michael Dowden has been digging into the report, and it shows the former officer may have committed corporate espionage.
Yeah, this investigation centers around flock cameras. They give officers a real-time look at what's going on while also being license plate readers. But the investigation found that this officer may have been using this technology to benefit himself and his other job. Flock cameras, always watching, tracking, a tool built on trust.
It's an invaluable tool for law enforcement to actually solve cases, homicide cases, sexual assault cases.
But a recent investigation shows the trust may have been betrayed. It alleges that over the course of months, Sandy Springs Police Reserve Sergeant Francis Esposito used his Sandy Springs flock login to run license plates, gather data, all for another job.
The data is the gold mine for literally any startup, any company that is trying to grow.
The investigation concluded that Esposito may have violated multiple Georgia laws, including corporate espionage.
I think that this officer probably understood the rules and understood what he was doing was wrong.
Now, in an email, Mr. Esposito's other employer, Signal 8, said in part, quote, "At no point did Mr. Esposito share, transmit, or transfer data from Flock Safety or the City of Sandy Springs to Signal 8 systems." However, the whistleblower who started this investigation was a former Signal 8 executive who told investigators that the data from Flock was used for beta testing and validation of the product.
It's clearly a violation of policy and perhaps state law.
And the concern is that what else the technology could be used for and who is watching the watchers.
Without the guardrails, the whole system is going to fall apart.
Now, after this termination, Sandy Springs then sent this case to post, which then will look at potential disciplinary action against Mr. Esposito. We're in Sandy Springs. Michael Dowden, Channel 2 Action News.
That's what happens. That's what happens when, again,
no guardrails, no kind of process surrounding it. They just installed the cameras and said, "Here, just start monitoring and catching people."
When the government's involved, it is always slopping just trash for some reason.
Yeah, and local governments are even
worse.
Less.
If we lived in a country with any kind of spine and dignity, people would just go out there and cut those down, like they do in the UK. They go out and cut down all the EULA cameras.
Nobody has a spine. A spine? Come on.
I have no objection to that behavior at all.
Yeah,
it's a bunch of shit.
Let's be serious about one thing. The neighborhoods that those things are in are not the neighborhoods that should have them in. Come on.
Well, you can't put shot spotters in neighborhoods because they're racist.
Listen, we don't need cameras.
They'll be tracking down.
We need a massive expansion of the death penalty.
There's that.
All right. Give me one generation of just killing all violent criminals. Death penalty for all violent criminals.
Yep.
Anybody who commits random acts of violence or violence for the purpose of organized crime, death penalty automatically.
Yep.
We'd put like 1 million people to death, and then 99% of the gangsters in the country would be dead.
You'll start you'll start seeing a behavioral shift.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
To say the least.
I agree. Definitely should be on all 50 states.
There you go. Then we don't need cameras.
and the problem, I think, is the stigma because it was being used. Obviously, at one point, was used the wrong way. It was being used to put wrong people in the death penalty. We all understand. Right. But I think we're far from it. But I think that it's because of that old stigma from. That's why
better that 1,000 innocent men die than one guilty man walks free.
Oh God!
I don't know if I agree with all that. I wouldn't think you agree if you were the one that somehow a camera said you did it.
No. Thankfully, the camera actually explicitly says Brian's innocent, even when I'm not involved.
Every time the camera tries to find you, it's just pixels.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. We have a habit of We have a habit of looking into the future and having good ideas of what's coming. So here's one for us. With this surveillance state, what's the likelihood that what we're about to watch here is only going to be used for military usage? That's my question.
It's never only going to be. Military is just that's just a testing ground.
Yeah, exactly. So here's Anduril Industries. They're a defense contractor. They're the leading edge of defense contractor stuff and intelligence for the battlefield. So here in Columbus, Ohio.
Ground to cover ever since Anduril announced it was coming to Central Ohio at the start of this year.
Well, that growth is exponential, and 10 TV's Angela Ann sat down with one of Anduril's top leaders and learned how this global company plans to embed itself into Central Ohio as our region booms.
I can't believe this traditional media still exists.
What's that?
I can't believe this traditional media still exists.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's still a bunch of fucking assholes sitting at a desk. Well, let me tell you about the new story.
With $1 billion animations budget.
One Tango West container in the open. Weather's coming in heavy. What's the plan?
You are seeing the future of America's defense. And part of that future will be built here in Pickaway County. What was once farmland is now home to one of the most advanced defense manufacturing projects in the country.
So when you look at this space, what do you envision?
Well, envision eventually tens of thousands of unmanned systems being produced by Ohio workers coming out of our facilities, going to U.S. and allied militaries.
Zach Mears is Anduril's Senior VP of Strategy.
I wonder if by Ohio workers he means H-1B visa people.
Yes.
If he means
yes,
Chinese scabs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it always ends up. Oh, there's like, well, we're gonna create 2,000 jobs over the next 36,000 years. It's like, wait a minute. It's like over how many years? Like it's always over the span of such an enormous amount of years that it's like, so you're not making anything. You're not really doing anything. It's like, it's like 2,000 jobs in like 5 to 10 years. I'm like, okay,
right.
In the meantime,
right.
What are we
Absolutely.
doing?
And then you say, we're an American company, but how much of your workforce is actually American?
Yeah.
We sat between what will soon become Arsenal 1's building number 1 and the start of buildings 2 and 3. The plan is to hyperscale the production of autonomous weapons.
What's that?
This is fucking cool though. I can't help but to get
it is.
Like look, it will be an army of death robots that will eventually be turned on us.
Mm-hmm.
But listen, that's like 20 years from now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right here in Central Ohio, folks.
And systems like Ghost, Barracuda, autonomous surveillance systems like Sentry Towers, and other AI-powered products from electronic warfare systems to fighter jets. With 4,000 promised jobs, Anduril is Ohio's largest job creation project in history.
Over how many years?
Pickaway County strategically, then you could be pulling not just from Franklin or say Fairfield, but really to counties to our east and southeast.
Yes, we expect to.
Now the job postings are out there for Columbus. The job postings are out there. They started posting this 2 weeks ago, maybe a month ago. They started posting. I started seeing the posts.
Push is far down near Cincinnati, around Hamilton and Mason. We already have interest from employees up in Cleveland and around Akron. And for many of them, they want to stay and live where they are. They believe that their community is their fabric, but they want to have a job that excites them, and they're willing to travel upwards of an hour and a half to do so.
Mears says Anduril is moving fast, but he understands the hesitation from locals about what's to come. Challenges like new roads and housing.
Now, it'd be foolish to say it's not a concern. It's been an issue, not just here locally, but across the state for some time. We've been engaged with Jobs Ohio, with the Columbus Partnership, with the local townships about housing plans and housing development. Communities are very clear in sharing with us their plans so that we know and can help point our employees to places where they might find good, affordable housing around the campus.
Andrew says it
that's
is
going to
already
be
investing in Ohio.
everybody's rent is about to get doubled around that area. That's
Yeah,
all I gotta
south,
say.
That's where the
south end of town.
Yeah, all
South,
those people over there might
southeast.
as well start packing yourself out because they're going to be soon they're not going to be able to afford to live in their neighborhood anymore.
And what's crazy is they have an airport, Rickenbacker Airport, that will service that side of town as well. So as they're building in the right place, especially if they're going to be building aircraft.
Yeah, but they're going to get priced out of their own homes very soon.
Oh yeah. All around the airport, all around Rickenbacker, that whole area. It's the slum, not the slums. It's the working class man's kind of area now. But yeah, they're gonna price everybody out and pop a whole bunch of McMansions out there.
Yeah.
Force Pipeline teaming up with high schools, technical centers, and universities to prepare the next generation.
If you're not reaching kids from 6th grade to 8th grade, transitioning to high school.
Now, if they're building a pipeline, if Andrew's really doing that, and they're building a pipeline and they're not embracing the HB1 crowd, I very well may like that.
But he also wants to make money, so there's no way he's not. I mean, sure, they may have some unskilled labor, but the real money is all going to be H-1B1 visas.
Or massive automation.
That's where they save, automation and savings for payroll with the HB1s.
Yeah, absolutely. Like to think that they're they're gonna it's gonna be visas and gonna have a lot of unskilled labor work that's gonna be slowly getting automated out as well. So that's always the plan. That's always the way to do it.
Yep.
Especially for those kids that are interested in a technically oriented trade, you lose that interest and that ability to then pursue that certification that is ultimately going to pull them into this campus behind us.
Until the automation kicks in.
What is it? There was a conversation between some billionaire CEO of something on it, because talking about it's very dystopian on it, but it's how the big companies, they need to crash the economy to a point where it's like 40% unemployment rate on there, because to bring employees back to their heel, because they believe that they're getting already being paid too much, or they're asking too much. Seems to be another part where they're like, we need to back to the good old days when they're making $9.50 an hour and they have to work 12 hours 7 days a week.
It's like another economic reset.
And he talks about a new
recalibration.
And he was talking about he was going to say the new economic order. Like he paused himself and had to change it to new. Well, it's kind of like, and it said order, but even himself, it's almost like he caught himself saying, "Oh, I can't say that word that way."
Right.
You're talking about that guy with the huge forehead.
Yes.
Yeah. Watched that video the other day as well.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
I think American companies should be forced to only hire Americans. I think we should deport 50 million people. And then assholes like that can get what they want. They can, we can see what the free market dictates when that guy has 50 million fewer laborers to work from. And if his business goes under, it goes under. Fuck him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we see that, even with Trump, he said everything he said on it. He increased H-1B visas. He actually changed H-2B1 visas to, as well, to help the farmers on there, but it's the same.
Yeah, he hasn't been doing deportations enough. We need to be doing 50,000 people a day, 10 million a year. That's what we need to be doing. And what he needs to do is he needs to call in hundreds of thousands of National Guard, and he needs to clean out every single major city. And they need to be breaching doors. They need to be slaughtering career criminals. Places like Baltimore and Detroit and Chicago, he needs to send in military straight into the city, and every single person with a switched Glock, just kill them.
Just end it.
End them. and round up every single person who's illegal and kick them out of the country. And this needs to be a crusade. There's no other way to do it. It has to be done on such a scale that it either needs to be done with the absolute full force of the American government, in which case we're talking about mobilizing hundreds of thousands of reservists and National Guardsmen, or it really shouldn't be done at all. You know, that's a point I've heard bandied around a little bit on the internet recently. I completely agree with it.
Yeah.
All Trump
Yeah.
is doing right now is kicking the fucking hornet's nest.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was the whole point. Is like show, because it gets people like people on his side getting excited. You know,
That's
forget about everything else he didn't do.
political
And he's
theater.
not doing. Yeah, it's all theater, right?
It's
all
political
theater. So
humans at play.
people think that we're on the right direction. It's like nothing is changing. Nothing. We're just you're pissing more people off. You know,
Kicking the hornets. nest.
At the least, that's about the only thing that you are doing policy-wise. The thing that actually will move everything is not being done, and he has no intention of doing that as well. Why is he now releasing the Epstein file? I'm sure it's because they're sterilized them enough. Well, there's nothing that's going to show. It'd be like 2 pages, no names. All of a sudden, all that files not going to show a single name.
Of course.
On there, it's going to be sterilized to a point where it's not going to do any good. It's like we already know what's coming.
Every page is going to be about 80% redactions.
Yes. And of course that's the case. That was always the case.
So it's all just become theater. And I kind of I mean, I kind of knew that was going to happen. I'm not surprised.
The only thing that you can do, you'd have to be a madman to actually make change. And when I say madman, you'd have to have completely no regard for your life or the lives of your loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're not a madman, there's some men with no names that take you into a back room, and then they very calmly tell you, you're going to do what we tell you to do, or you're going to die, and your family's going to die, and it's not going to be cinematic, and it's going to be tragic, and it's not going to be fast. We can make you watch your family die over the next 20 years. These are the types of people who put like uranium in people's soup so they die of stomach cancer 10 years later.
So you almost have to be the madman or someone with absolutely nothing to lose, willing to sacrifice everything.
And let's be serious about everybody that's out in Congress or anything. They all have something to lose because they're all about money. They're all about money. Every single one
had something leveraged against them, especially with the special interest groups.
Yeah, so
well, that's why I've never liked the idea that Epstein really mattered very much. I feel my estimate would be Epstein is like at the level of he's
just a glorified businessman
and pimp, a worker. He's like he might as well be a doorman or like a butler or janitor or something like that. He's just like an employee within the deep state.
Party going.
Yeah, he was just an asset. He's just like a CIA asset that used anybody else. If you look at his background, somebody got picked up. He was a teacher before all that. I'm sure they found him with some stuff, and they're like, well, we could ruin your life, your career, or you can come work for us and do the things that you like already. And it's like, all right, deal.
Yeah, he's part of the machine.
Very simple.
He pulled him right into the machine.
So yeah, I don't think anything changes until there's a radical groundswell of Americans insisting, and Americans are the only ones who can insist because we have the Second Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
So until literally like 20 million, and let's be real here, almost all the people who have guns are white men. So until 20 million white men pick up rifles and demand change, nothing's ever going to change.
I don't think they're going to or they're willing to. Again,
No,
as long as you
I don't
get,
think so either.
as long, the only thing that every Americans just want is just a little bit. As long as you give them just a little bit of entertainment and comfort, that's a little bit bare crumbs of it.
Bread and circus.
Well, let's not get hyperbolic here. A little bit of comfort in America is one of the greatest lives any human being has ever lived.
Exactly.
In the
Here
history of
it is.
humanity.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
you can be
So,
a fucking
level of-
billionaire in North Korea, and you'd rather be begging on the street in San Francisco.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I'm also stating it in the United States level. Like I'm not talking about we're on here. So it's very easy to have people be complacent. doesn't take a whole lot.
No, bread and
Everything is
circus
so
is
easy for
everywhere.
us. Yeah, everything's so easy to us. Everything's so present to us that won't happen because everybody's like, well, I don't want to go do that. I don't want to do that. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, especially people who end up with families. There's a lot of principled men that knock a woman up and then suddenly they're not principled anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is a tragedy because the men who came before us were happy to march off to war despite having a wife and kids at home.
Mm-hmm.
But,
we're doing some good shit tonight because now we're about to segue into the fall of culture and where things have gone. And we got our boy Rudyard and our boy Tom. We're kicking ass with this conversation like we always do.
Oh, I've seen this guy before. This is Tom on the right?
Yeah, Tom Billiou.
Okay.
I've used some of his material before. Shout out, Tom. You're a friend of the show. Also, to everybody that's out there on all the channels that are reviewing and watching the show, this is us, the three guys. We're back again. Please hit the like and subscribe if you're new. Share it out. All the things. You know what it is on social media, you guys.
I don't know why, but I always had the impression Rudyard was skinny. I always thought he was a skinny guy.
He sounded like a skinny guy. So let's get into it. We'll pause along the way. We got plenty to talk about. They've got plenty to talk about. We got plenty of input. Let's go.
Though that I think is really powerful, which is there's no
kind of a
historic
cold
society
open
that has looked like us that didn't have a revolution. And I want to get a sense of what is it that we look like.
The best example I've gotten recently since we last spoke is that Nietzsche had a term called the Age of the Last Man. And he was writing in the 1880s. And he said that no one would truly understand his work until the year 2000.
Really?
And yeah.
Whoa.
And so the Age of the Last Men is in the 21st century, and it's a society where he said the West would be dying because it would push envy and crabs in the bucket and lack of ambition and conformity to a point where there would.
Doesn't that sound familiar?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We are a dying society. We're a dying people.
Mm-hmm.
Our culture has been dead for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And there's the
You
crabs.
know what would help? You know what would help that? Deporting 50 million people who were never meant to be here in the first place.
Make things a little bit more uncomfortable for the privileged.
Well, make it more uncomfortable for the enemy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But you have the enemy internally as well. The people who have become apathetic, right? The ones that, like you said, the men who have
Actually have the
lost their
control.
grit and spine.
Yeah, well, that's the average. The average person has lost all willingness to act as if this is real.
Right.
To live. People would not be procreating. The West would not be able to survive. It would be the most dangerous period in our history because it would be so complacent. And it's really interesting when he frames the Age of the Last Men that all these things which we see as moral are actually profoundly immoral because there's lots of things where not doing something is immoral.
Yes.
And we're a society where we're not doing a lot of things. And so I think we're a profoundly sick and endangered culture.
So what are the things that we're not doing that we should be doing?
Traditional human societies, and I want to sort of set a frame for this where...
Okay, now here we go. Framing it.
Our cultural frame as a society is like 30 years.
Yep.
We can pull music from the 80s. And we're still running out of 80s music. And we can't go back further. The furthest we can imagine is sort of World War II. But at the same time, the scale of human history is thousands of years around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're only looking at us, you're going to think we are less than 1% of the human race. And every other society in history had vastly different social norms than us on a variety of things. So we've gotten rid of having a coherent culture, which is a really big deal that no one thinks about. When you pass on things through generations, the nation is a generational inheritance.
There.
And we've thrown that away. And that includes the religion, the social structure, codes of politeness, a national identity, a sense of honor. And there's a series of beliefs that practically every pre-industrial society has that we don't. And we sort of, I mean, this is a huge topic I'd be happy to unpack, and we've got several hours, but we don't realize that this is not the end point of humanity. We're an insane aberration of a bunch of variables thrown together.
I think it's worth going in so that people can have landmarks as to what exactly is going on. So writing about what a shared myth is something I've been focused on recently, getting people to understand that we all live inside of a frame of reference, that we tell ourselves a story, and that we can't even agree anymore on what America was founded on, like whether we are a profoundly racist culture that is just about colonialism and slavery, or whether we have created the most prosperous nation that the world has ever known. Like we have both of those stories being told at the same time, and the fact that we don't have anything to share, I think, has profoundly problematic consequences from a divide the nation up standpoint. So I'd love to hear, what are some of the landmarks that you see? What are the things that like specifically are dissolving that you think are problematic? And the line of questioning started with, what are we not doing? So what are the things that we're not doing that are problematic that have led to those things?
You gave me a lot of interesting conversational threads.
It's crazy how his mind works. I've watched this a couple times. His mind, this guy's a genius. I mean, I think we can all agree he's got a ought level of genius.
Level autism, yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome to watch.
Him and HoMath are very important figures.
They are very important. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, but these are topics that if you try to, again, they're such important topics, but if you actually try to have a conversation about this with the average person, just try it.
Well, I mean, if you just try to regurgitate what he says, I mean,
Yes.
I can't.
Yes.
I've listened to a shitload of HoMath and a shitload of What If Alt Hist.
Yeah.
And I might be able to put the ideas together, but I can't deliver it the way that they do. And the way they deliver it is what makes it so effective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's the well-rounded package. And we're about to see that now in the way his mind works and how he addresses the questions Tom had. All right, let's go, gents.
But a few of them, but I don't think I'll get to get to all of them. One of them is, so people know Jordan Peterson for his pundit career, which has gotten quite popular. But I think Peterson's most important work is something no one noticed, which is Maps of Meaning.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah, it was such a hard read.
So I have not, you read that?
Yes, and I've watched his University Maps of Meaning course. It's like 36 hours or so.
Okay.
Many times. It's fucking fantastic.
Okay. All right. That's something I'm going to look into as well.
I've read some of his books and such. I mean, some of the things are good on there. He kind of fell off when he joined Mr. Ben Shapiro and kind of like decided to almost like rebrand himself, which didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. But I'm pretty sure because the money was good.
Yeah,
he should have
always.
stick to he should just stick to his lane.
2 years, but I finally completed it. And it's so intelligent because he's looking at human neurology and biology and all these different things and saying, how come countries will die fighting over their religion? How come two countries are willing to go to nuclear war over something? How could anything be important enough for that? And the thesis is that humans have to sort of build frameworks of how we interact with the world, or maps of meaning. And these exist inside our neurology, where we have to interface with good, evil, higher, lower forms, a variety of things, just to function as an actual human being. And that's very important. And another thread I want to pull at is there have been multiple myths about what America is over its history. The first one, which came about after the Revolution, early 19th century, was America was a republic. Then, with the mid to late 19th century, America was an Anglo-Saxon, British nation. Early 20th century is America was a frontier culture built off sort of the shared challenge of entering a new land. Then the theory from World War II until the mid to late 20th century was America was a nation built off sort of diversity, mixing peoples together. But back then it was seen more as like Italians, Irish, Jews with the local Anglo-Saxon population. And then the theory in the 21st century has been that America is built off oppression and colonialism and racism. And for all of those questions, do you want me to unpack which of those I believe?
It'll be helpful to understand what you believe, but with a specific eye towards why does it matter? Like, does it provide stability? Because when I look at your work, one of the things that I feel like you're trying to do is understand the different ingredients that have made this moment dangerous. And that gives me a sense of I can follow cause and effect in your thinking. And so I'd love to hear those narratives through the lens of, well, if you believe this, this is sort of the knock-on effect, and you can see it in society today.
Yeah. Life without identity is very difficult because difficulty has no meaning without identity, and life has a lot of difficulty. So if you have no framework for who you are and what you stand for, you're kind of just going to float around and the world's going to feel empty. And I think that's a huge issue that the entire society has today. And every single attempt to build identity has been destroyed. And this is going to sound like it's a conservative talking point, but if this was a murder, we have the gun. The guy who did it claimed he committed the murder. You see the body. And I don't know, you have witnesses, and that's that the Marxists explicitly set out to destroy the unified culture, and that's what thinkers like Marx and Gramsci Marcuse, Yuri Bezmenov, all these Marxist thinkers had a legitimate process of social disorientation, which they planned out each step. And we've seen all the steps happen in reality. But the only reason that worked, because in a normal society, you just brush that off, is that with the rate of change with the Industrial Revolution, and we talked about Mouse Utopia last time, there wasn't that unified cultural anchoring.
Okay, so we've got explicit attempt on the part of the Marxists to go in to leverage essentially the rapid rate of change to know that people are going to just try to make sense of that world. And while they're doing that, we're going to slip in all these confusing, conflicting notions. So it's going to be hard for them. Now I'm using my language, but it's going to be hard for them to even leverage a heuristic of just mapping to somebody else's thinking to say, oh, at least if I just follow them. Now you're following somebody who's very eloquent.
There's people, if you read some of the writings of before the, I don't know, don't want to get the channel in trouble or anything on it, but the group of people before they are now the genociders, the things they wrote, because, you know, Marxism comes from the certain group of people that we know as the genociders. They created that, and their writings are, one of them was specifically about their need to the destruction of the white man, which is very, very telling on it. The destruction of the white man so that they can conquer and create this greater project that they want to do. That was one of the things and that was about late 1900, beginning of the 20th century, right before World War II and so on. They wrote these things on there.
So leveraging the chaos of so today's analog would be like leveraging the chaos that AI, the disruption and chaos that AI is causing, and then using that as a mechanism against us.
Well, even before then, like their plan also was to use actual, like, quote unquote, what we see as societal norms and so on, and using that, like using culture.
Using
culture. So, and not just, and using the diversity and kind of the infusion of how to create that problem to destabilize. So it was a form of destabilization on the local populace on this. So I was reading some of them, and it was actually kind of, I mean, it was it was fascinating how their minds work, and one of the things was the need for a catalyst, and that happens to be World War II, and so on. Because that group also worked with the with the bad people at that time, call it.
Yes.
And yeah, so yeah, it's fascinating those to actually go out and actually read some of the things that went behind the scenes, so to speak.
Awesome. Human psychology.
Very erudite, and yet they intentionally have woven in these beliefs that are contradictory, and so now you
there it is.
Are parroting something back, but you don't necessarily understand it.
That speaks to a point I made in the video I just recently wrote, and I'm about to record today. And so the issue we have is that modern thinkers, or pulling people from the last 200 years, they're very bad at big detail and context and sort of understanding how the world works. Take Marx as an example, who's had an enormous impact on the entire world today, even though people paper that over. But even right-wing people are hugely impacted by Marx. I mean, I've done class analysis. I have my own sort of dialectic of history. Marx built the idea of sort of splitting history and society into different principles and jostling them together. But Marxism is built off all these assumptions like, if everyone is the same, which is not true, if history has a direction, which is not true, if the state can socially engineer people, which is not true, if there has to be a rebellion of the proletariat, which doesn't actually have a government system, which will result in utopia, where you've added together 10 logical assumptions. And if you do that in coding, your code's going to crash.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened with society. So last 200 years, we're really bad at understanding how things interconnect, where we can understand things that we can prove with science very easily, sort of material shifts, like how the weather occurs or genetics or whatever. But we're very bad at using sort of wisdom to figure out what it actually means. Meanwhile, the thinkers before then, from like, the ancient world, the medieval world, they often have pretty good sort of like total world human experience wisdom. It's why religions like Christianity still work today, or why people still read Marcus Aurelius. But the way their wisdom works is often in such like a differently coded way than modern people, that modern people don't really understand it, or they just think of it as a silly story. When you look at these ancient myths, you have to compare what part of this was a silly story and what part of this is symbolic wisdom. And that's a very thin line. And so we're stuck with this gap where we can't find the ancients identifiable, but then the moderns don't really know what they're talking about in a lot of cases.
We'll get back to the show.
And then that goes back to the frame of reference, not having a frame of reference, not having a proper perspective on where we are in society, where we are in history and culture. We're going to skip Tom's ad read.
But I also think I think it was almost I guess it's almost like intentional. It's kind of because I don't think I was ever cemented a quote unquote what's the nation's culture, because I think it always kept on changing depending on who you spoke to and who you're not. What is it to become American? What is the United States? What
Well, it was always an amalgamation of European cultures. That's undeniable.
Yeah,
American culture was never anything other than European.
And I think that because of the amalgamation, it was kind of hard to kind of pinpoint it down, or there was never an intent or wanting to make it so. And I think because of the founding fathers, some of them, we have everything from people who were Unitarians, people who didn't, who were they were spiritual but didn't actually have a religion, to some who were Christians, but then they had some that had different denominations, and some of them who were Masons as well on it. They were the foundings of it. So it's kind of hard for any of them to really sit down and be like, this is our quote unquote, this is what the nation really is, because the whole myth of being a Christian nation, that came way later. That's something kind of like a new invention. But you could read all all the founding fathers, some of them were Unitarians. That they're not a Christian any longer. Some of them were not Christians at all. Period.
Yeah.
And wrote extensively about it. So it was always a pseudo secular
Invention
with some sprinkling of spirituality, so to speak, to tie kind of like loosely tied together.
They fled for freedom.
Yeah, they didn't want to live in a theocracy.
Mm-hmm. Ladies and gentlemen that are here watching the show, thank you so much for joining us. The link to Tom's channel is in the chat. As always, we throw flowers to the ones that we react to. Thank you very much, Tom. Let's go.
When we went on to a fiat currency by establishing the federal bank, the Federal Reserve, we went into a system where we could print money. By printing money, we were able to steal from people through inflation. By being able to steal from them via inflation, we created hyper inequality, which, I mean, it took 100 years to manifest, but it's manifesting pretty horrifically right now. And so we had an American dream where it was like, there is a truth to be faced that there's one asset class that humans understand intuitively, and that's the house. The only way to protect yourself from the devastation that is inflation is an asset. And so now you have the situation, this is a literal statistic, 10% of Americans own 93% of the assets, and people wonder why, we're getting just ever increasing inequality. Put that together with the fact that we have an evolutionary algorithm placed in our minds that makes us absolutely go ballistic when we see something as unfair. And so the Gini coefficient, which says basically if somebody looks around and sees somebody else has more than they have, they're going to go bananas if it gets too big. And so the Federal Reserve made it possible for wealth inequality to just spiral completely out of control. Once houses became unaffordable, then you get this hollowing out of the middle class. And so now the wealth inequality is going like French Revolution levels. Because of all those things, I think we actually are headed towards a French Revolution, but it's economic in nature. Everything else that's manifesting is simply because the economics broke. And if you fix the economics, there's enough prosperity that people sort of fall back into comfortable patterns and they can overlook all the schizophrenia that something like a Marxist philosophy might bring. And so that encapsulates my core thesis as to what is going wrong and therefore what we would have to do to fix it. As you pull all these threads of history, do you have a similar thesis that you can lay out? Is it tied to Marxism? Is it tied to leftists in general? Or is it something else completely?
So we're in a really awkward position because I have a joke that hundreds of years from now, for the population number, they'll have line go up, line go down, where 20th century is line go up, in demographics, 21st century's line go down. And we're at the point where line go up is starting to go into line go down. And this would be very psychologically disorienting for people, because I think if you fixed the economic issue, you'd put a Band-Aid in a lot of these underlying things. But I think we do have a pretty severe cultural issue, which is sort of working with the economic one. And we didn't have the cultural issue until recently because money could paper it over.
And can you define what the cultural issue is?
So you look at the baby boomers, they got rid of a unified culture where it's the shared story we talk about. It's that people have lots of things that people don't think matter, in fact do. Where one of the great things about living in Texas is there's sort of like a fluid degree of social trust.
Shout out Texas.
That makes doing things easier. You can trust that, like, let's say I forgot my debit card at a restaurant yesterday. I just went back and got it, and they just noticed me like, oh yeah, you can have it. We know who you are. That's possible in certain cultures, but then not in others.
Actually, to be fair,
if it's a high.
I just got free Chick-fil-A last night. I was just in the Chick-fil-A drive-thru, just started talking shit with the guy working there.
Yeah.
Like 5 minutes of conversation later, he was like, "You got your food for free. Go on, go on."
What?
Yeah. Texas is pretty dope.
Awesome, man.
trust society.
See, I'm thinking about throwing a dart and relocating. You guys are tempting me.
Austin's the spot. Austin is where the world that is becoming the world that will be is. I think Austin is one of the places where that's happening.
Nice. I'm curious.
You
We're going to see in January.
To watch over them every second. And if you don't have to micromanage or always check in, where culture affects absolutely everything. But what happened was that we had centuries of increasing wealth where we thought we could get rid of culture. The boomers are at the peak of that. Then the death of culture, also chicken and egg, a lot of variables. But once you no longer have a culture with things like the federal government's responsible to the public, you shouldn't print infinite money because that's bad form and it's going to hurt people. Now they're just so greedy that they're going to do it anyway.
So would it be wise to define culture as the way you mean it, informal rules that are passed on from parent to child, person to person, without necessarily being documented?
Yes. So anthropologically, culture is sort of a net sum of how a society operates. It includes a government system is dependent on culture. The religion is, the manners, the accent, how child rearing occurs.
Yep.
How they cook. The culture is just the sum total of the human interactions. And what happened is that modernity had lots of implicit issues, which we used money to paper over. And then once most people slid into misery, money didn't do that anymore. I mean, as an example, we don't have... we have lots of very sort of sloppy social rules in our culture. Equality is one. Equality is just not an accurate depiction of reality. And you can believe in it as long as your society is wealthy enough that you don't deal with these conflicts. But then once you get to a place where one person gets to make their bills and the other person doesn't, all the pleasant notions sort of become very costly. For example, globalization worked in a world where the pie was growing for everyone. But in a world where that isn't true, you then realize other countries aren't on your side. Does that make sense?
100%. Okay, so we are no longer transmitting via culture ideas that keep our society strong and stable.
Right.
When that happens at the same time that the economic pie begins to shrink, suddenly you see all of the issues. But your hypothesis is that the issues that we need to address, the more foundational issues, are ones of culture.
No. I think both are foundational. Economic is first because people are really struggling economically, and you need to fix that in order to just have a functioning society. Because so many people are just barely paying bills and living really miserable lives that if you don't fix that variable is going to tear everything else down.
You know, that's just a little weird about people living miserable lives. It's almost like, you guys know that I make almost nothing, right? I'm always struggling, on there. But it's almost like a mindset too. Like I guess it's maybe, I don't know if it was them watching or looking at so many people that they feel that are doing so much better. Because, if I put myself like on a list, and you guys didn't know anything about me, I just put my data on it, you would probably look at it going, this guy is a complete failure. He's probably the most miserable human in the world on it. He's kind of useless.
Yes.
But I'm not miserable though.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not, but I have my culture, which being Puerto Rican, because I have my family, I have my faith, and those other factors, I guess they don't matter as much.
It's that duality. It's that duality of modernity that he spoke on, right? And the loss of culture. So when people don't have those kinds of things to ground themselves to and normalize the struggle, quote unquote, right? Where you're struggling, where you may fail, right? And you don't have something to center yourself back on or reflect back on, or those people around you that surround you, kick you in your back when you need it, or boost you up when you, right? These people don't have it, right? So it's relative to their experience.
Yeah, so money won't be able to fix any of that. Like I met many people who made $250 to millions of dollars, right? I know I met them, millionaires on there. And they're some of the most miserable humans I've ever met in my entire life.
So with our current culture, there's an extreme level of privilege, right? Like Brian said at the beginning, the Korean guy who makes a bunch of money still wants to live here in California. So there's that privilege. And I think that distorts things, Alex. I think it distorts things for these people.
I think it is when he talks about people being miserable. I think he's talking about people who want, or at least they have access to, the more fulfilling parts of life, but they can't enjoy them because they're working 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. They're working 2 or 3 jobs. They can't spend any time with their kids. They can't give their kids nice things. They can't buy them a bike for their birthday. They can't make sure that they go to a good school. They can't buy them a car once they become old enough to drive. They probably can't even pay for their own car.
The ones that are truly on that fringe.
Yeah, because
that fringe is a large minority of the entire country.
Yeah.
And the people who are doing just a little bit better than them, they have the exact same problems, but one step up.
Yes.
And then it's like healthcare and stuff like that.
Yes. Yeah. Awesome.
Fix that variable is going to tear everything else down.
Okay. So this moment brought to you by economics, problem number 1, and then culture begins to be problem number 2. Now, if we start getting specific about culture, you were talking in the beginning about Marx, that Marx has had a huge influence on the right and the left, whether they want to acknowledge it or not. So far, what you've put forward about Marxism is it offers these conflicting ideas with the expressed intent of destroying culture. What I want to know, assuming that I've gotten all that correct, what is Marxism hoping to accomplish by destroying culture, and why is it so influential?
Those who lack wisdom lack wisdom. You don't know what you don't know.
There it is.
A lot of people don't know a lot. In fact, we all don't. In fact, we're all infinitely weighed down by the things we don't know. And Marxists have a tendency to sort of see half-truths. I could talk about the neurology of that because there is a neurological scientific argument. But I've read most of the Marxist thinkers who did this: Yuri Bezmenov, Saul Alinsky, Gramsci, and none of them see the world or society as a living thing. So when you look at Marxist economics, they're like, this is the pie. We can just divide up the pie. What they don't see is that this pie was, in at least a fairly significant portion, brought to you by the corporations and the rich people and the kulaks that you want to kill. So if you kill the revolution, if you kill off the most sort of economically productive people, this isn't your pie. This is your pie. And Marxists really have an issue with that, where Yuri Bezmenov, and this just shows how deep and insidious it was, the Soviets literally had a department built around this where they had set procedures. And there's a certain degree of like kind of funny horror about it, where you can watch. Again, you can read this stuff. You can read Gramsci wrote for free online, Rules for Radicals you probably get at the library if they still exist. Or, I mean, Yuri Bezmenov has videos on YouTube you can watch. And the Soviets came to the conclusion, if we kill the religion, we can kill the rest of the culture. And they had I can go through each step of the process, but they had a multi-step process on how to kill a society. And they'll literally say stuff like, make sure neighbors don't trust each other, make sure parents don't trust their children, put a bureaucrat into everything. And then the end point they came to was that the functioning of a healthy society was dependent on religion, but the Soviet Union itself was an atheist state. And so Yuri Bezmenov was studying India because he was supposed to destroy Indian society. And he thought, wait, I actually like Hinduism. I'm going to leave for America. And so it's a very sort of, when you see half of the equation, it makes sense.
When you see half of the equation of what destroying the society makes sense. So the only way that I can make what you're saying make sense is if they are driven by envy and a desire for control.
That's true. The argument I'm making is from Ian McGilchrist's The Master and His Emissary, which is a book on neurobiology. And
you guys familiar with that one?
No, never read it.
Never heard of that. The Mastery and Divided Brain and the Making of the Western World. Interesting.
That is interesting.
Put that on the list.
Yeah. All right. That's a good one.
Thesis he has is there's two halves of the brain, the left and the right. And the parallel that I love so much from the book, or the example, is the left hemisphere can only draw half of an image. If there's a human, it can only draw half of it. And it can only see the world through money and power and measurable things.
Oh, wow.
And the right hemisphere can see the world through context, flowing over time, immeasurable variables, all these different things. And modern ideologies really wire people to the left hemisphere. Marxism is probably the most left hemisphere worldview, where from their desire for just power and destruction, then it totally makes sense, because they're not thinking of all the stuff it took to build that world. They just want to take from it.
That honestly,
you know what? That book very well may be a really, really good read. Where's it at? There it is. Somewhere around here. There it is. That might actually be a really, really good read to kind of understand in dialogue with others where their thought processes are coming from as well.
And it's very, I mean, yeah, it does speak to what, I mean, when you talk about especially now in society, I would say even most people who are on the right and on the left, their focus is on economics in one way or another.
Yeah, and not looking at the bigger picture of things.
No, at all. Because even now, what's it? Now everything's run by economics. Everything, everything that has to do with even immigration economics. And not, very few. I think there's a few people who are now talking about society norms and all that on there, but it still comes down to economics. I think that's what runs the mindset of people here in the West. It's just, that's what defines whether or not you're successful, or whether you're going to be happy or not. It's just
right. Left brain thinking. Yeah.
Biology.
And
fast forward here.
Or experience a fundamental piece of what's actually happening, and therefore are always, even if they have good intentions, they're always going to misplay the world because they are blinded to some of it, or they hear things that aren't there.
Right. Jordan Peterson has this four-sided sort of matrix of, you deal with a difficult situation. You can either fall to hedonism, nihilism, totalitarianism, or rise to heroism. And the people closest to Marxists in history are religious fanatics. You could make a pretty good argument that Marxism is a descendant of sort of like radical Christian sects in the medieval or early modern or ancient world, where they, like at Munster in Germany, radical Protestants seized control of a city, went crazy, started practicing communism, forced sexual communism. They had multiple leaders who would murder each other, claiming to be prophets. And so there is this tradition here, and the Marxists fit into that, and they're very diluted. I mean, that's just kind of obvious if you take off the ideological goggles. And modernity creates lots of mental illnesses, though. I read this book from the World War I era, where he was going through all of these different things. It's interesting to see an author even a century ago state it, because like when I was growing up, lots of moms were scared to let their kids play outside, or they'd walk their kids several blocks to school until the end of high school. And that's not something that we would process as mental illness in our society. But you look at that and you think, you have an anxiety issue.
Yeah.
A lot of
would.
my ex is the same way. A lot of people are like that as well.
Especially women. Growing up being surrounded by women, all of them with deranged anxiety. I mean, anxiety that's so bad that it poisons the people around them and gives them anxiety.
Absolutely.
Anxiety that's so frantic, it's like this person has an electrical energy. I
Yes.
think a large percentage of our generation grew up with women like that.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
My ex,
it's so destructive.
It is very destructive.
My ex is very much like that. I still get texts from her, like my kids are going to be taken
Panic,
away.
panic.
Like, hey, they just no, ICE just took this Native American on it, and I'm like, my kids are going to be okay. Like they don't want to play outside. Like I take him and buddy, he's got a farm. They got goats and stuff on there. I just let him run.
Yeah.
Go play with goats.
Yeah.
And they're like, what are you doing? What are that? I'm like, nothing is going to fucking happen.
Yeah. And
the goats are not going to eat them. I play with them. I play with the baby goat. You know,
I think
like,
this is a big reason why the men of the past, our ancestors, discredited women and disenfranchised them, generally speaking, because there was an acknowledgement that people who are predisposed to such extreme anxiety are not going to make
and behaviors
and logical decisions.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll be back in a minute. I'm going to grab a coffee. I'm still listening.
Yep. Go right ahead. And the folks out there, hydrate, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. The heavy hitters are back, y'all. We back. All right, let's go.
Reasonable. Most are.
as a feral Gen Xer, I guess we definitely see the world very differently. Okay, I want to keep putting these pieces together. So we have my goal is to understand what's wrong with society, because I, for one, find it incredibly meaningful in my life to try to help people right the ship. So we've got culture transmits these incredibly useful ideas. Culture has ceased to transmit these incredibly useful ideas, partly because there is modernity is helping people form certain types of mental illness. The one that you focused on so far is, and I obviously first called it the mental illness, don't mean to put words into your mouth, but Marxism, where what's happening is they're only seeing half the picture because they are so left brain dominant, using McGilchrist's breakdown of that. And so they are obsessed with envy, power, money. And so their worldview naturally springs forward from that. They exacerbated the death of culture itself by intentionally, and documenting it, shockingly enough, intentionally going in and creating an ideology that is confusing, leveraged the rate of change happening at the Industrial Revolution to take advantage of the fact that people would be more or less distracted and having a hard time categorizing things as a way.
Or like I said, the AI revolution, right? We got a major distraction right now. We got AI slop everywhere. Everybody use ChatGPT.
Way to slip that in. And so now you accelerate the death of these traditional things that were being passed on, that were in some ways holding society together by transmitting these ideas. Now, this is now me totally leaping forward with the...
Now we're distracting everybody while we're implementing major public monitoring. We're putting the rug out from underneath them, right in front of their faces.
It's because it's almost like it's done for a reason. I think everything happens for a reason, and I think it's perfectly done. Yeah, it's all about control. And
public trust is no longer in the neighbor. Now you can trust the government will watch out for your crimes.
Well, I think it's also the if you remove the middle class completely, then you have a set group of people who literally own, control everything, and the rest are just out there to just do one thing only, and it's just to serve them. And I think that's we see that a lot of it. It happened in Hawaii, in other places on there. It's almost like testing grounds, you know. They try doing it in PR and so on. And I think that's the reason why Puerto Rico still stands today after hundreds of years on it, because we will not let our culture be destroyed, even though they tried to. They said, no,
Resilience.
and it was like,
Yeah.
oh, it's illegal to speak Spanish. I'm like, oh, I guess you're going to arrest the entire island. It was illegal to fly the flag. Well, we flew it even higher then. Come get us. The biggest FBI surveillance state ever was in Puerto Rico. They tried sterilizing 1/3 of the island. I mean, they throw everything out, and we're like, no, we're too stubborn. We're gonna hunker down. We're gonna keep our culture. And even now, when you have big names like Bad Bunny, who's #1 in the world, and so on, the first thing he did was, hey, don't forget about your flag. Don't forget about your roots. Don't forget about your culture. And that's
what helped.
important.
That's what everyone adhered to and kept the nation strong.
Prediction
In face
that
of all
your
that.
statements have made so far would be that now, given the rapid state of change due to technology and especially AI, we're going to go through another revolution of sorts, third industrial revolution, fourth industrial, whatever you're going to clock it as. But AI is going to usher in a rate of change that's absolutely unparalleled.
I just said it.
Already seeing people like Mamdani rise up and see how much energy is going over to that. That seems to fit in with what you're predicting, especially given that you said economics is the most foundational.
You did a very good job articulating the chain of logic there. Besides that, to speak to your point, I agree with that. I had a failed prediction that we'd have 1,000 politically motivated deaths by last April. That turned out to be incorrect.
Yeah, you remember that one, Brian?
I do remember that.
Yep, I do remember that, and I was behind the idea.
Look, nobody could have predicted that Trump winning would be so peaceful. The left has normalized a level of political violence over the last 15 years where anybody betting would have bet that the left would cause radical violence. And I actually think that's one of the most suspicious parts of Trump's victory, is that the left was not violent in that one instance.
I think it's also, how you were just talking about how men with guns, they don't want. It's almost like they both really don't really want to do it. You know what I mean? Because it's almost like him being there is kind of like the best gift you can give us, because now it's the biggest excuse, like, to say and do and whatever. It's like, oh, the boogeyman's there. God, I was running out of things to talk about. Now the boogeyman's there.
Leverage it.
Yeah, I mean, if Kamala was there, if Kamala would have won, what do you have to talk about?
Right.
I mean, seriously, what do you have to complain? Like, it'd be like, well, Kamala's, well, like, you know what I mean? Like, you need it's like you get your boogeyman, so now it's like, oh, now I could,
now you can leverage boogeyman for your
re-engineer
purposes,
some more of this nonsense. It gives them something to re-engineer on there. So I think that's the reason why as well. It's because it's almost like they need Trump. They need Trump as bad as anybody else.
Well, and then
I think that I think they're cowards, and they realize that this is the one instance where they were going to be met with overwhelming force.
Yeah,
this is it's different than Black Lives Matter or Antifa just causing some random riot in some random city in response to some otherwise trivial shit. Opposing the president, the president that won the majority vote as well, opposing that would see them resisted with the type of direct force that would instantly crush these organizations. If Antifa and BLM sincerely opposed the election, which their ideology in the last 15 years of their actions would dictate that they should, if they sincerely did that, they would cease to exist. So I think it was a mechanism of survival. I think they acknowledge that we cannot oppose this and survive. We have to live to fight another day, so they let it happen. Or
they were
obviously they could never have stopped
spineless.
It. Yeah,
they were 100% spineless.
But in the grand scheme of things, I still think we're going to have a revolution or a civil war. I just don't think there's any sort of causality here. besides that. And
you don't think there's any causality between what we've been talking about in the Civil War?
No, I said that incorrectly. What I meant to say is this is where we are. There's no trajectory where we don't have one.
Right.
Where this chain of causality doesn't continue. And that's deeply concerning, but I don't want to lie to you. It's interesting as well to see it just manifest on both the right and the left, and to see it also around the entire world where I think our foreign news is really bad now. I don't think Americans know what go on in the rest of the world.
No,
but
foreign
if you look
news
at Germany
sucks.
or France or Britain.
Foreign news is, I mean, they're all owned by the same fucking media organization.
They're even more biased than American news. Every single European news outlet might as well be CNN.
It's trash. It's
because they're all it's worth like it's like how do you know what's the real international news on? You have to find some no name underground YouTuber in that area who's be like, Ashley, here's a video. What's you know?
That's where
if you're lucky.
That's where new media is taking us. Is finding those direct sources.
Or South Africa or Brazil or South Korea or China or Malaysia. I have hobbies where I like watch documentaries from different countries or look at travel guides to different countries.
Yeah.
And all the issues we have in America are occurring in all of those countries. It's really remarkable to see how unstable so many global governments are.
Do you see connective tissue?
Of course. It's, I mean, we spoke about this last time on the podcast. There's various historic cycles that predict that the world goes through these sort of cyclical patterns where the mid-17th century, nearly every country on earth was having a civil war and an external war, often with plague thrown in. Same thing as the mid-14th century. So these things happen, or like the Roman Empire fell at the same. The Roman Empire's crisis of the 3rd century occurred at the same time as the fall of the Han Dynasty. So these global trends are sort of synced up. And I predicted that it would be a global crisis a few years ago because these trends it's the same causal variables in each region of the world.
Okay, so I'll give you the breakdown that I think is happening right now. I'll tell you why I think that it's connected to the other places. Let me know if you see something I don't. To me, this is purely about the economy. And whenever a currency is debased, whether the Roman denarius and you're just chipping away at the silver, or whether the US dollar and you're money printing ad infinitum, what you end up doing is the average person cannot save. And I think it's an immoral decision that people make because the people that are doing it know the average person doesn't understand investing. They don't understand how to escape this. And it puts them into a mechanistic situation where they will get poorer over time. And so anytime that you put people in a position where they cannot save their way to success, they cannot pass their wealth on to their children, you break a unspoken promise that, hey, work hard, be disciplined, don't eat the marshmallow now, put it off till tomorrow, all the things that basically religions have been telling us forever. This is how you win in this survival crafting game that we call life. And it's like once you mess with the underlying economics and you can no longer go mine the ore, find the gold, whatever, and build your stable society, pass things on and feel like you have been justly rewarded for your efforts, you stop putting forward effort. And once you stop putting forward effort, then things begin to break back down.
That
and
is
there.
I like it because there's also that growing trend where a lot of people when they go to work, and I've heard it. It's like and why it doesn't matter. It's like and a lot of the kids now, I get to call them kids now, when they're working, it's like I'll never. It's funny. It's like now people in their 20s are kids to me because
they're like, shut up, uncle.
Yeah, all of them call me uncle. You know, it's like, but it's true. It's like I'll never afford a home. It's like when will I ever afford it? Like in the island of Puerto Rico, the median house is $333,000.
Yeah.
Who and they make less money than anybody else in the States. it's more electricity is more expensive there than it is in California.
Yeah.
Explained where anybody can work their way into a home. It's literally an impossibility for about 95% of the island.
Now,
And
now at my age of
as far
50,
as
I'm at the point where I'm not even considering owning a home.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucking grim. But do you know how you fix that in America? At least deport 50 million people. Tell me that's not going to have a positive effect on the housing market.
Well, I don't know because I guess it's all owned by, it's getting more and more owned by
private capital.
Private capital.
Oh yeah, that needs to end.
So
they need to end that shit immediately.
It's all owned by
We need to
private
make it
capital.
explicitly illegal for private companies to own single-family homes, and all single-family homes that are currently owned by a private company, we need to give them an extremely short period to sell, a period that's so short that it's a punishment. Like give them 90 days to
liquidate
dump their portfolio and force them to sell for pennies on the dollar.
And here's the problem with that too. It's like there was that big tech company that was found to be doing fraudulent hiring and so on. That was completely illegal. It was illegal, not just unethical. It was completely illegal. That would send you to jail. They were fined something like, the biggest thing on it is something like, it was like 10. It was like, oh, we're gonna fine them $10 billion on it. They made 420 billion.
Yeah, it's a splash in the bucket.
Again, it's another piece of legislation. All government issued fines to publicly traded companies must come in the form of a percentage of their market capital of no less than, let's say, 5%. So if you're $100 billion company, you can never be fined less than $5 billion.
Take it back to the 50s, bro, because
when a fine like that on a company like Apple or Google would absolutely devastate them.
Well, not even that, but who's going, like, all the congressmen, I think they're all stock, they're all like inside trading,
inside traders and special interest.
None of it will ever go through. Like, it's just
we need a soft revolution.
We do.
I do think we'll have a revolution. I don't think it will be a bunch of guys with guns. I think it will be democratic, but in the sense where it's extremely radical. We're going to get people in here. We're going to be voting for people where deporting 50 million people is the moderate position.
Yeah. Yeah. At least that would be very nice to see.
You have, like we do right now, where people are like, oh, Tom, what are you talking about? It's no big deal that we're money printing. All the countries are money printing. Yes, motherfucker. And that's why we have problems in all the countries, because you are breaking the physics of the way that this game works. And the second you break
the physics, or is it on purpose?
I've always wondered, like, all right, this sounds retarded, but follow my logic here.
Go for it.
What about money burning? What if the government just said, hey, listen, we're collecting whatever, $6 trillion a year in tax revenue. We're just going to start burning $5 trillion a year. Like literally just, if it's in a digital form, we just delete it. If it's in a paper form, you burn it. Wouldn't that be deflationary?
No, because all that stuff is tied into, you have to do it digitally because all that thing is tied into bonds, debt, and so on. So it'd be the same way if you were to say, I'm going to liquidate. It's like saying, why can't we just liquidate all student debt?
I guess paying the loan is burning it, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we liquidate all the student loans right now, it's over $1 trillion, right? That's not deflationary.
Well, that's different. The student loans are held by individuals.
But everything is held by. But everything's held by something though, whether it be a foreign country, whether it be tied into something. So it's not like we just yes, we print, but we're also lending it out and something holding onto at the same time.
Yeah, no, it's definite. When we're comparing debt that the federal government holds to private debt, it's completely different. We print money from the Federal Reserve, which is not a federal institution.
We call it the Federal Reserve, and it's not federal.
And we borrow money, but all borrowing means is printing. It's not like somebody out there has an IOU. So I don't know. It's all sort of fugazi. It's all a show.
It
feels
is.
like.
Well, it is. It's fake. It's all fake money.
But I do hope that we have
shell
that
game.
revolution. I hope that Gen Z can do it. It seems like they're the generation to do it. Gen Z men seem radical, frankly, and in the best way. So I have a lot of optimism about Gen Z.
Hopeful optimism, but there's still you can be radicalized all you want, but if you don't have the balls behind it, or in the case of what we see
I
in
don't.
society,
I don't see it's
testosterone.
going. I said, I don't see them as being the one. I think
They have nothing
just
to lose. You don't understand. Like competency matters, but only for a tiny group of men who are leading. For the other 99%, all they have to do is they have to have a path that they can see that's worse than the path we're on.
Where they are at.
So like they'll at a certain point, Gen Z will be faced with an option like, do I go the path of revolution,
but
whatever that means? Again, that doesn't have to be violent. Or do I keep living the life ahead of me? And the life ahead of me is 50 years of pointless drudgery.
But isn't this
that's success?
But isn't that also the game between the left brain thinker and the right brain thinker? Because they're placated. They're placated into they're manipulated into thinking with the left brain. So they're not even going to look at the fact that this is the nation, this is the future they're fighting for.
Oh yeah, we have to talk about. We're talking about the average person here. They are an NPC.
Yeah.
I am more and more convinced that there's a certain threshold of like RPMs, sheer horsepower that your brain has to have in order for you to be considered a person. And I'm not religious, otherwise I'd probably make an implication about people, whether they do or don't have souls as well. But I would say at least half of the people on the planet are just not participating in this thing called life.
They're not.
And when you talk to them, there's just this glazed look across their eyes.
There is.
And tomorrow doesn't exist, and yesterday doesn't exist to these people.
You ever met somebody when you're having a discussion with them and you kind of break a reality, or you get like a breakthrough with them, and it frustrates them to the point of they don't want to talk about it anymore?
Yeah, everybody. Every single person I've talked about.
So none of those people, none of them can ever truly be revolutionary. None of them can ever be leaders.
Never.
All they can do is follow, but they can absolutely assess the level of misery that they're currently living in. And all revolution requires is a couple of leaders rather, and then millions of people who joining the revolution looks like a less miserable path than what they're currently doing.
Yep.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah.
We're seeing through time.
We'll see.
Being honest about the fact that we have algorithms that run in our brain and they are evolutionarily placed. And when you build the game, you have to build the game around the algorithms that are going to run in the human mind. And so we
I don't
get
like this guy on the right.
delusional.
I don't like this guy on the right. I don't know why. I just don't like him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a grain of salt kind of guy.
Periods largely on the back of success. And I would be very interested to see if most of these repeating cycles happen just on the back of big debt. And big debt is the answer to, hey, things are going great, print a little bit more money.
Yeah, well,
and then you just
debt holders love inflation because it erodes the principal of their debt.
Yes.
So anytime we live in a high inflationary period, we're going to necessarily have radically more debt-based speculation, because if you're some giant corporation right now and you're taking out $100 billion loan, you love the idea of massive inflation.
Absolutely.
This loan is probably on a multi-decade timeline, or even like they do real estate loans that are 100 years. You're happy as a pig in shit when you hear about how bad inflation is, knowing that you have a 100-year loan with the principal that's being eroded at an accelerated rate.
Yep. Absolutely.
Caught in this needing to print to keep it going. All of your economy becomes a Ponzi scheme. And then finally it hits a tipping point. It breaks. And to your point, line go up turns into line go down. And that's why you're going to see this stuff happening in a whole bunch of places all at the same time. Because if
looks
you
bored as hell.
Yeah, his mind. You can tell his mind's already 3 steps ahead of Tom.
Yes,
in a globally connected world, in the way that we are now, in the way that we were in the moments that you're talking about, once that debt gets out of control, like it's going to spread like wildfire.
Hang tight, because if you run a business, this could be the most important 60 seconds of your week.
All right, y'all know.
Does this guy have like 15 advertisements in a 1 hour long video?
The history of inflation.
Yes. He's got his whole. He's a life coach type dude too, so he does all that.
That's why I don't like him. I hate life coaches.
It's weird that we have life coaches, like
right.
It's about a snowball's chance in hell that guy's been through what's necessary to tell anybody else about life.
Like, how many divorces, how many business have you drawn? Like, how many?
From a psychological standpoint, he might help a few of these assholes we've been talking about in society. But other than that, yeah, I'm not, like I said, grain of salt with Tom. Respect, Tom.
With the history of political crises. It's really good. And it says exactly what you said.
Political crises? What was the book?
It goes through
The Great Wave.
Yeah, David Hackett Fisher. He always recommends that author. I need to start reading his stuff more.
Okay. I've heard him mention him before.
Relating the history of inflation over Western history with the history of political crises. It's really good. And it says exactly what you say, where over these rhythmic periods of political crises in Western, and the Turchin data says global history, inflation's correlated with political disturbances. And you don't see this kind of inflation not have political issues. We talked about last time, French Revolution, 30 Years War, Black Death. I would connect the cultural issue with Mouse Utopia. I think the political and revolutionary whatever crisis is of economic origin. I think Mouse Utopia is of cultural origin.
Okay, so
that's a good point.
Mouse Utopia speed run for people that don't know it. If you create a situation where the mice have everything they need, plenty of space, plenty of food, they end up imploding. They end up stopping having children. They end up killing each other. It's wild. Do you, like, if you had to shorthand that, would it be something like this? When there is no adversity that you have to face, you turn inward. When you turn inward and become self-obsessed, that you're no longer thinking about the group, what's good for the group. You're no longer disciplining yourself. You're no longer like reining in our worst impulses.
Does that sound familiar? That sounds like society today to me.
Yeah.
People are selfish. They're self-concerned. They're not reining in impulses. Yeah.
Yeah. What you said earlier is true, that a lot of these previous cycles, because empires come and go, there have been lots of times the world has ended over history. It's just the world was the world they knew. And that's a lot of cases. You can either be hurt by wealth or you can be hurt by poverty. Crises of wealth are, I mean, the ones we spoke of before, where, because inflation is an overabundance of wealth where it stops having value. Crises of poverty are situations like in Africa in the 19th century, where you have mass famine and migration, or the Huns, the barbarians coming out of the grasslands because they need to conquer outwards. As I like to say, you're going to die anyway, so it's better to die rich than poor, where you're going to have problems no matter what you do, but it's better to have more interesting problems. And that's kind of what's happening here. And
things have been too good for too long.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I very much agree with that. My
privilege. That goes the picture of privilege here in America, right?
Well, yeah,
the thing is, I think
talked about a lot about that. Yeah, when what is it that when things are so comfortable, we create our own problems, and that's the whole the Mouse Utopia experiment. That was actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, we're all familiar with Mouse Utopia.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
some people need to be chased by a lion. And by that, I mean, really, we all need to be chased by a lion. There needs to be some adversity. Adversity is the thing that's going to keep us disciplined. It's going to keep us focused. It's going to keep us cooperating, all the things that as a species.
Let's see what we've done too. Like we say like adversity in America is a snap check. You're getting help. Adversity on an island? What's adversity look like in Puerto Rico? How do those SNAP benefits translate over there in Puerto Rico?
What SNAP benefits? I mean, you got
St. Lucia. What SNAP benefits?
Dude, you have to figure it out. It's like figured it out.
Yeah,
they ain't. I mean,
why don't you guys just have more money? It's simple.
They're perpetually
right.
find out.
You're right. That's the problem. We only have more money. God,
didn't you ever think of that?
Just print money.
I never did.
Jesus.
Oh, we're not allowed to because we use American dollars, so we're not allowed to. That's the first thing they did. We changed. We were using the Spanish dollar, and then they took it out immediately, making everybody's crippling everybody's income to a 10th, literally overnight. They're like, oh, by the way, we're changing all your dollars today. Oh, now you're all poor. We're poor.
Land.
Yeah, we were from poor.
You're going to work your land that was yours.
Yeah. It's like, oh, what, the Spanish let you own land? Crazy.
No more of that.
That's disgusting.
Okay, so help me understand how this ties specifically to the left. You did a video called WTF is going on with the left. What is happening? What do you see there? Why was that worth a video, and why is it one of your highest performing videos?
It's one of the highest performing videos because it's politics content, and politics content is always the one that does best because, and I get it, like, it's perfectly reasonable to care more about the things that affect your daily life than...
What's interesting, though, I didn't take that video to be overtly political. It certainly is talking about a political class, but you weren't talking about policy or anything like that.
Yeah.
You were talking about a mindset.
It's socio.
It felt more culturally...
It's socio-political.
To me. Did that one feel overtly political to you?
The reason I say political is that when I make these videos with... you met Merrick and my editor and whatever. I subdivide the videos by subtopic. So I'll have
I'm going to let him cook. I'll be right back.
Political subtopic, I'll have the anthropology subtopic, I'll have the history one. So I jump between them. So in my internal mental, I put all modern things in the political category.
Got it.
So I put everything like Incel Revolution or that video or Will America Have a Civil War in the political box. So that's why I say it. You could move the categories around and I wouldn't care much. But the thing with the left is they're in a weird place. One of the things people don't notice is that the different sub-coalitions of the left are fraying, where... For example, the TikTok viewers don't trust the NBC CNN viewers, where there's been a generational rift on the left, where the Zoomer left really does not like the Boomer left, because they see the Boomer left as the capitalist oppressors. So they've stopped listening to their paymasters at DNC, and then instead they follow accounts on TikTok and Instagram that have no factual basis. So they are the people who are turning up the throttle for violence. And it seems nearly every day, at least in my feed, leftists are calling for violence in one form or another. And I think the NBC CNN left don't really know what to do with this, because on top of it, they've built out their ideology and coalition in a certain way that they can't back down. They fired all the reasonable people like a decade ago. If you've made it this far into the left, you cannot be reasonable. They've removed any way they'd change their ideology, but the American people have sort of seen through it enough, and they've lost all of their flexibility. Look at the presidential candidates. I don't think anyone who the left is pushing as leadership, either for that or for a variety of things, they're so lacking because the left has pushed this culture of inauthenticity for so long. That's their core issue.
So if their core issue is pushing an agenda of inauthenticity, would becoming authentic solve the problem? Like this feels, I don't know how to make that.
As I said that, I thought I should take that back. They have lots of core issues. I shouldn't say that they have one. They have several that are eating them alive. But
I mean, doesn't this really go back to, if you were right in the beginning that this is a Marxist thing, that was the first thing you went to when I asked my first question. And then I said, okay, this all makes sense if and only if that group is driven by envy and a desire for control, and you added power and money to the equation. It's like, okay, yes, that all makes sense to me. When I look at the far left, there are plenty of people that I wouldn't put into this box that would self-identify as left. But when I look at the far left, they don't make sense to me until I clock envy. Once I clock envy and control, like, oh, they just want to be in control, and they want to be in control in a like spiteful way of, I want to tear this down. I want to stop people. They don't have a clear vision of what they want to build. It's a like anti-against movement instead of a for or a building. If you were saying that was a problem, I'd be like, yes, that maps to what I see in the world. Does that seem accurate, or is that a misread from where you're at?
So the reason I said inauthenticity is I was thinking, what's the core issue with the left changing strategy? And the issue is they live in such an artificial world, they can't relate to other Americans or know what they did wrong.
They're in an artificial world because they're telling each other a story about what's happening that isn't accurate?
Because their way of life is in direct opposition to what humans would normally do. Where if you're in an environment where men have certain biological urges, women have other certain biological urges. If you're in a society which doesn't let you think about them, you're going to constantly be feeling a sort of internal jostling between your social performance or your internal self. Or in the left, they have enormous amounts of aggression and hatred, but they say that hatred is the worst possible trait. So on top of that, they've cut out any sort of new ideas.
Tell somebody on the left that there's only two genders.
Yeah, it's just.
I mean, how authentic are you as a human to fuck with that topic?
A huge percentage of liberals in this country still think that Donald Trump called all Mexicans rapists and murderers. And everyone in the country has seen the video. And so that means that there's tens of millions of people who can see something and explicitly deny reality. Again, they are NPCs. They're not NPCs. Like real people. They're not serious people. They don't actually think about the world around them. And they're probably not capable of that.
Yeah. Left brain thinkers. They're easily controlled.
Or even aesthetics. There's no good new left-wing art because they've sort of cut themselves off from everything that's not ideology. So at this point, they're just so deep into the cult, and the cult has so much programming that they can't program themselves out of the cult.
Out of curiosity, so I like this idea of biological urges. I think that one of the things, as somebody who came to politics very, very late, I felt like I was the kid saying the emperor had no clothes. Seeing people say that men and women are the same, I was like, you guys haven't been married. Like, there's no way you've been married and think men and women are the same. So on this, I take a very nonchalant approach of that, like, if you're building a worldview in a way that's detached from things that are self-evident, you've got a problem. So are the urges that you're referring to largely sexual in nature? Are they about aggression? Like, what would be the clear distinctions that a sane, grounded person would make that the left is failing at?
In the pre-modern world, you had a concept called natural law, and America was built off the concept.
It's like everything. I can't have conversations with the I can't even have really conversation with people. Period. Especially somebody who's either right or left. Like, it's just to a point now. It's just I just go, oh, sure, okay. Like, you can't actually conversate.
No,
especially if they feel like somehow you're talking against what they believe in, even though you're like, I'm in favor of everything you stand for. I'm just maybe adding you another point of view, but it doesn't register in their minds.
Yeah. Yeah. Reaper, I didn't catch. Reaper said N-word. I didn't catch him say anything off color, but yeah, I agree. Absolutely. And there's a lot of people sniffing their own shit is what it is, Alex. And that's essentially what Rudyard was getting to. The cult is so thick. They're caught in an echo chamber.
I also think it hurts. Have you ever noticed that, like, you can say something to a conservative that's really awful? Maybe it's not you, but you see somebody say something to a conservative that's awful, that you know that they're going to deeply, fundamentally disagree with, and they don't react with like pain. Whereas you can like reference a meme that's insulting to the left, and leftists will look at you like, how could you do this to me?
Yes. And now I have interacted with some conservatives that are lower level thinkers, conservatives, and they're on the edge of radical. So they take offense easily. I've had those kinds of interactions, but the vast majority of individuals want to sit and talk, even if they get red-faced and pissed off. They want to sit and discuss it.
Yeah.
Of natural law, where it was sort of lost between the American and the French Revolution. The idea behind natural law, and it stems back originally to the Greeks, but it was codified in Christianity, is the structure of society and the legal code should be a representation of the real world. And so when they were doing various things, like setting up the American Constitution, they were saying, we're going to build this system working with human nature. And their idea was, we're going to work with God's reality, because if you lie against it, you're going to get punished. And so when they set up the checks and balances, their idea was that humans are naturally greedy and selfish. So let's make a system where if humans are greedy and selfish, it works for the society in general. And that's the same with capitalism, with science. You're working with an accurate understanding of human nature. And the reason that basically every other society besides us had sexual norms is because of natural law. But it's not just that. That would be a simplification, where social class is to agree natural law, same thing as a legal structure, same thing as how a society wages war.
And I dare to say this, the liberal mindset has used the word freedom as a way to throw all these biological and normal things out the window, and to manufacture socially whatever their delusion and feelings feed into it.
Where St. Augustine had the principle of just war, which was there are certain conditions under which war is okay and others where it isn't, because they had a sense that there's human nature and it's best to work
and that's
sort of like the range.
The whole point of St. Augustine with that one is because in the entire New Testament, there's no such thing as a just war. Point blank on it. And at that time, that's when the Roman Empire was the whole expansion and replacing the Jewish people on it, and they had to need a way to go to war, expand, and go on it. So that's what he created. He wrote about how a just wars, so to speak, and on there. So it was mainly just a plot device for them to be able to do conquering and so on. Because even subjugating people into Christianity was just because that will bring him to heaven.
I get it.
Of human nature, because you'll actually get the result. And so what the left does is they just shot natural law and then laughed at its corpse. Where they just have no concept that there is human nature to work with, where
do they really believe that, or is that one of the bullshit ones that they throw in to confuse people?
So I think they actually believe it, because they would make so many better decisions if they did believe it. So I'm reading a really brilliant book now called Modern Times by Paul Johnson, and it's a history of the 20th century. And it's talking about the Soviet Union, where they kept on making all of these staggeringly terrible decisions. And partly Stalin was literally a criminal before he got power, so he has sort of that backdrop. But at the same time, Stalin shot all of his officers right before the war with Hitler, or 80% of his officer corps before the war with Hitler, because the Soviets thought hierarchy doesn't matter. You can replace the officers with sort of like privates. But in reality, the most important variable for a successful military is a strong officer corps. And so he shot all the people with experience, and they didn't think about how are we going to pass on the human knowledge between these two.
And he shot them because he thought they weren't loyal.
Yes, because Stalin went through phases of paranoia where he just killed people. He killed off like a dozen different groups in Russia. And each time he thought
Stalin was one of the worst. And people talk about like evil people and stuff on it. Stalin like surpasses even you know who from that had the camps. That man was on the different level. Of course, we can't say that because somehow that offends people. But yeah, you talk about like
he was on a completely different level.
Yes, he if people retreat, that meant you're dead. You're dead. Yeah, you're retreating from a honor. There's no such thing as I mean, every single excuse you could imagine, you're getting shot by him. You're getting killed.
Absolutely.
But in the process, he killed Russian society because he killed off everyone who could have been productive or helped Russia, where they went through they killed off the rich first, then they killed off the kulaks or the independent farmers. And keep in mind, this is just a generation after the end of serfdom. So all of these people were new money. They would have like a few more cows or a tiled roof. Stalin killed all of them.
It's one of the most horrifying stories in all of history.
Yeah. Because you're just imagining, like, I'm from rural Pennsylvania. It's like, imagine going into a town and just killing off all of the most respected members of that town. And most of the time, the other people in the town don't dislike them. And you're just destroying the society. And it speaks to your mental illness point that if you were in the Middle Ages and you had an understanding of human nature and you wanted to wield power that brutally, you'd be like Machiavelli, where Machiavelli has this highly structured and logical sense of when he's going to be brutal. And Stalin is just like, kill them all. And that portrays they actually believe it. Or same thing as importing immigrants. If you know enough anthropology, and even left-wing anthropologists agree with that.
Hold on. Let's go back to that, because that's a really interesting point, and it's hitting me weird. Okay, so what I just heard you say was, hey, Tom, as proof that these guys really do believe that it's all blank slates, generals, the same as a private, doesn't matter, kill them if they're not going to be loyal, just promote the next guy. Do you think that the first order of what drove him to do that is paranoia or a belief that everybody's the same?
What anthropology has found is that culture varies a lot and it's very deep. It's sort of lots of implicit stuff where there's still a significant amount of cultural differences between different sort of different subregions of British Americans from hundreds of years ago, as well as different groups of white American. So generations later, you can still see if someone's culturally Italian or Irish American from a variety of things. And so culture is very deep, and the vast majority of it's unconscious. And so when the left does a lot of things, they're acting out sort of very complex subconscious beliefs, which have sort of been transmitted to people unconsciously, where children pick up all the elements of their society's worldview without being taught it sort of directly, where a child will know, for example, that their society values equality a lot because people in that society just won't brag, or they'll be uncomfortable with stating one group is more successful than another group. So people act out very complex psychological principles that they don't understand the full implications of. And so Stalin's first motive was paranoia, but then inside his sort of deck of logic was everyone's interchangeable.
Okay. Yeah, it feels like mental illness is a key ingredient, but that is very fascinating. I never saw Stalin through that lens. Stalin being one of the most terrifying figures of the 20th century. Okay, so we've got the left. They believe that everybody's an interchangeable cog.
Why
This
wouldn't
is
you?
one of the things.
You say what?
How would he not like? Does he not know nothing about Stalin? Like, again, I'm surprised when people say this. Like, at all. Like, this, it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, I've read
And what's
history.
crazy is I got exposure to Stalin's history in my early 20s because I was dating a woman from the Ukraine at the time, and she's directly from the country. So
I just read it in the history. It was
quickly.
in my history. Like, it was in my history book. I just read it. I was like, oh, look.
I was not
Right here.
exposed to it in middle school, high school. Nope. Unless I went to search for Russian or European history or something and went down that rabbit hole, I wouldn't have.
I
known
also
much
had to go
about
out of my
Stalin.
way to find it.
Well, I read it. I mean, I read it in a book when it talk about like World War II and stuff on it. I just read a couple things on it. His name popped because a lot of those names pop up. So I just, you know, I was like, oh, who is this guy? And then it's like, oh, this guy is horrendous.
But not going down the rabbit hole, because the big thing is, you know, the people that were leading the war.
Well, guys, I'm about to head out. I gotta go to work in early in the morning. So
wow,
I gotta.
All right.
I'm going for
How
2
much,
hours.
How much longer do you want to go?
What do we got here? He's got 31 minutes. We got about a half hour to go.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I have to wake up in a few and get ready to do my Amazon work. Make sure I'm a colleague.
Morning.
Yeah. Yes, I work Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, so I could be off and go see my family on Thanksgiving weekend.
Awesome.
So I'm doing it. I'm doing this
all
for a
week.
reason. I have to. I'm going to Alabama, see my taking my kids and see my fat. But for that, I have to work 3 days in a row, 10-hour days before I go.
Get it in.
Get it in.
I will. This has been a blast. This was fun. We need to do more of this.
We're in the home
Yeah, no.
stretch. We're going to blaze through the rest of this and close out.
All right. Well, you know, guys, love you guys. Thank you guys so much. And then I will definitely see you guys, you know.
Love you
next
too,
one.
brother.
See you soon, brother.
See you soon. And then there were two. All right, let's speed through this, see what these guys are going to wrap up.
Yeah.
As Tom struggles through the things that we understand.
That they actually believe. And that is certainly creating the problems. Why do you think that this is gaining so much steam right now?
It's gaining steam for the economic issues you describe.
But why does that push people to the left?
So bad times bring radicalization. That's just a consistent principle. And that could be religious fundamentalism. It could
that goes back to what you were saying too, Brian.
Be radical nationalism, leftism.
With the conservative Gen Zers being uncomfortable because of the societal conditions, and then that radicalizing them.
I read this really fascinating book called The Psychology of Socialism by Gustave Le Bon, and it was written in the 1880s, and it's absolutely insane. He totally nailed the left psychology back in the 19th century. And it's one of the most prophetic books I've read in my life, where I wrote all of the predictions he got right, and it filled 2 pages. And he said that the core demographic of the left is sort of mal-educated people, where our education system overproduces midwits, where we teach people non-useful skills. And then the economy doesn't have jobs to pick up for that.
Right.
So there's this huge
basket weaving degrees.
Lag and sort of overeducated people who are taught to believe they're more important in the world than their services are. And they are the people who drive the left. What happened in the last 40 years, and Turchin talks very cogently about this, is we had a huge cadre of both over and
in the black community, that's the women that think they're more intelligent than everybody else and have all the degrees and they're the most educated and educated idiots.
undereducated people. And due to the economic issues, they could not sort of integrate into society. So they became radicalized, and they used the radical left virtue signaling game as a way to short circuit not having to deal with merit, because they resent merit. So they use ideological purity spirals for status selecting.
Yeah.
And so among young people, there's lots of sort of dissatisfied elite aspirants, and the college educated ones tend to go left. And like, I spent a semester in college, the non-college educated ones tend to go right.
Okay, so we've got this spiraling up of what's happening on the left, overvaluing what they've achieved and what they're going to offer to society at a time where we're having economic woes. How is that manifesting politically? Like, when I look at the left, what I see are people that are using, I'll say, is empathy the right word? Compassion,
Sympathy.
maybe closer. That's not what they would call it. So I don't think, maybe you see something I don't, but I see them as fighting for the oppressed all the time. Like, these people are legitimately having a bad time. Somebody's got to stand up for them. We've got so much, to whom so much has been given, so much is expected, and they're going in there trying to help people. But it does not appear to be birthing a better world. It seems to be creating this, what Gad Saad calls suicidal empathy. And for me, zooming in on the things that worry me about the left are authoritarianism and unchecked immigration. What do you see manifesting in your understanding of the left and all of these predictions about the left? What does it have to say about those two things specifically?
So the West was built off Christianity, and the core sort of emotion of Christianity is love. Envy is the shadow of love. So they think they're doing Christian love, but they're actually doing its opposite.
Damn.
Because when you love someone, you accept their issues for what they are as a person. And when you envy someone, you look for issues to tear them down. So they've created a mask of Christian love to show its opposite. And the thing we're seeing is just, so you watch the woke commercials, like the Jaguar one or whatever one they're doing now, and you think, a group of people greenlit this. You could put 10 people in a single room who did not think there was a problem here, and that speaks to a real disconnect between them and the rest of the world, that they have these highly enclosed places where they constantly ratchet up ideological extremism, and they don't. One of the core issues the left has is they don't have self-regulation mechanisms.
No.
Christianity, as an example, has a series of rules, and if you break the rules, you'll get kicked out. That's even like fascism has a better rule structure than the left does. If you follow the rules, you're fine. If you don't, the left hates rules, so they just have vague vibes.
Rules and
but then
accountability.
they have no mechanism to turn off the bloodlust. So that's what happened in the French Revolution, which was 5 years of just mobs in France eating each other, and it was the snake eating its own tail. So the left is stuck in these where if you don't show your purity, you're kicked out.
But purity to vague rules? Because you're saying they don't have like the specific.
It is purity to vague rules.
Because we have freedom.
Sense. It's all contradictory. And they're using the contradictory to prove their loyalty, where every single thing the left says, they also believe the opposite. And it's George Orwell articulates it very well. And so they don't really have rules, and their standards get more and more extreme, but in the process, they purge anyone who would realign them. So they're just getting crazier and crazier, and anyone who would have told them no was kicked out 5 to 10 years ago.
Okay, one thing I've heard you talk about with the left, and my earliest step into what's going on politically, what's going on culture war, was I was interviewing Heather Heying. This was 5 years ago. And I said, this sounds like basically a female mode of living, pathologizing.
Yeah.
And I've heard you say similar things about there's a feminization of culture.
Here we go.
Is that being driven by the left? And if so, what's the mechanism?
One of the things
Yes. Yes. The answer is yes.
Undeniably.
I like to do to figure out how the world works is I look at what predictions of the future work, because you can see what's retroactively. Making a predictive model is important because it means you're understanding the world's accurate.
Right.
That's what the scientific method is. So when I look at old predictions and they did something right, I try to figure out what they did right. And there was this.
What was the core logic? What cause and effect were they tracking?
There was an ancient Greek play, I believe, written in the 4th century BC by Aristophanes. And it's a society where only women could vote. And it's a society where they get rid of capitalism and institute communism. They destroy the family. Senators sit in the central sort of Senate, and then they complain about how the room's too cold. And they use sex to control the men. They can't form a coherent plan of argument, and they just stay stuck arguing over the details.
Well, we saw this with the Man versus Wild episode where the women were on one side of the island, the men were on the other side of the island.
They literally get to the island and spend they waste 2 hours just sitting around crying and consoling each other over the 30-foot swim that they just had to take.
Yeah.
So you have this author in the ancient world who said that feminization of society will produce communism in the breakdown of the family and culture because there's an innate biological self-interest.
Say more, because I think a lot of people would look at women and say, that's who wants to have children.
Life's complicated, man. So women want to have children under certain contexts and they don't under other contexts. And there are different biological switches for both that societies can press. This is really a sign of archetypes being real, because the easiest way to explain this is the Jungian division between Mother Earth and the devouring feminine, where women tend to not like social barriers, clear principles or rules. And you can either say that's out of some evolutionary.
They're not going to like you, Rudyard.
Self-interest. Or you could say it's just sort of, there's the whole argument of the yin and the yang, and each sex has their own sort of innate character that propels them.
Right.
But the core logic is that because women are so biologically secure, they don't get any benefit from taking risks.
Right.
So it's all risk mitigation.
Right.
And so when you're removing all of these social structures, you're removing potential sources of risk, and you try to make a society where to differentiate yourself is a risk, where
I didn't cover this on my channel yet, but Finn's mother in Adventure Time literally created a utopia like that.
Yeah.
She didn't want Finn to leave. She wanted him to be safe, mitigate risk, stay here, stay under control.
The devouring mother
everything
archetype.
is as sort of undifferentiated.
What's that?
The devouring mother archetype. Never leave, never go anywhere. The outside world's a dangerous place, so you can never leave.
Yep, absolutely.
Differentiated as possible. So that's how you end up with communism from it. Did I explain that well?
You've got the first brick laid down, but I think there's more bricks to lay. So things that I've heard you talk about, which are very much along these lines, are when women say all women are a 10, that there's a thing that they are actively trying to pull off, that female hairdressers will cut the hair of women that they believe are more attractive than them by a couple inches more than you would to maximize their attractiveness. So they're actively trying to hurt their chances on the sexual market. It gets to this idea that women are playing a very different game from a masculine.
They absolutely sabotage one another.
Perspective. I recognize it. I see what you're talking about. I see that in women, but I don't. Even now, talking with you, I don't know that I fully understand the end game that they're playing for.
There is no end game. There is no end game. They don't plan. There's no plan.
Warriors and Worriers by Joyce Bennison.
Warriors and Worriers?
Yes, it's on Audible. It's very good. And it talks about the negatives of female psychology. And it's funny seeing this middle-aged, I would guess leftist woman write such a cutting and good critique of toxic femininity. And it goes through a lot of evolutionary psychology, where, as an example, unhappy women attack their family the most and then are polite to the outside society.
Yep.
Look at the modern West, attacking our family, polite to the outside society.
Yeah.
Or there's in female friend groups, and this is all backed by statistical evidence, you can look it up. Most women are scared to
I'm going to speed this up a little bit so we can get through it, but this is a very interesting piece he's getting to here. We're going to go 1.25. Let's see how that does.
It's extremely
are scared
valid.
to succeed lest their friends like them less, where that's a very toxic dynamic.
Right.
Or intersexual competition, which we spoke about, of hairdressers will cut the hair of women that are more attractive than them a few inches shorter than women who are beneath them in attractiveness. Or in female social settings, the not having the implication of equality is considered socially very dangerous. And you look at modern society, what's happening is that the bureaucratic machine of industrial civilization likes this feminine equality mechanism because it stops anyone from rising up and challenging it. It's a highly useful mechanism to keep the public in conformity. So that's why they're pushing men bad, because only men could rise out of this. And there's toxic femininity and there's positive femininity. And I want to state that because
yes,
for every, like, if, for example, if we said, like, you look at the murders of various dictators and genocides, you say that's men, that's true, but it's also a specific subtype of men who are doing a specifically male pathology, and it's comparable with pathological femininity. And the core issue of that is the abdication of responsibility, where because the...
What about those abortion statistics? We can talk about, evil emperors all day long, but what about those abortion statistics across all races?
Cost of child rearing is so hard that you have an incentive to abdicate responsibility, to let go of costs associated with basically having this little person attached to you for 20 years, where you're physically incapacitated for months. And so if you look at the left, it's all the abdication of responsibility. If you want a single place where the left does something that doesn't make sense, it's because of the abdication of responsibility.
And you're saying, just to make sure I understood that because women have so much responsibility with child rearing, they need to get it off of them in other ways.
Yeah.
Okay. I've also heard you say that, women just need to be honest. They're not going to be attracted to a man that can't dominate them.
Yeah.
So how do I reconcile that women both want to be dominated by a man in controlled circumstances? All of that's got to be somebody that they want, blah, blah, blah. But that and I want no rules.
Man, I know the answer to that, but this has been such a complex journey of learning all these things. As I stare at it in retrospect, I'm like, man, that's complicated. So it's two different biological switches based off context, where are there rules being enforced on me or are there not being rules enforced on me? And until there are rules enforced on me, I'll push these low trust strategies until there is a social structure, because men have always been the people that have built social structures. That's true for governments, religious institutions, corporations, militaries. And so women have been dependent on the patriarchy or the structures men build. So in the absence of a patriarchy, you'll do these low trust strategies until the context switches, and then you switch behaviors, where it's one of those things where it's Schrodinger's feminist. A feminist is either empowered or she's a victim. And it depends on context, whichever one you choose.
Whichever one they choose.
Schrodinger's feminist.
Yeah,
I fucking love that.
Choose for themselves.
Yes, by context.
And would that context be whichever one of these gets me more control, gets me more...
Whichever one I can avoid conflict with. Where if there's a conflict, because the incentive structure is that women cannot win fights against men. So a lot of female behavior is offsetting their physical weakness against men. Because if you're not going to win, go with the flow. So if I'm in a context where I can get away with, I'm going to get away with it. If I can't get away with it, I won't get away with it.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense to...
And that's where the complications of manipulation, that's where the complications of them being extra aggressive, that's where the complications of them being the crybaby, and they flip the triggers on their little personalities so that they can manipulate.
It doesn't make sense to people like us, where you and I are both very sort of entrepreneurial, and we want to enter in a situation and figure it out.
Right.
It makes significantly more sense if you're like a Russian peasant or a Chinese peasant, where you have these huge governments that are utterly exploitive. And so when you can hide a little bit of grain from the tax collector, you do so.
Okay. So you're saying that is one of the strategies that women employ?
Yes.
Okay. So as we feminize
Conservation.
the societal structures that have traditionally been created by men, and at least in this moment are being co-opted by women, what are the consequences for men?
A lot. I mean, there's no birth rate. That's a pretty big consequence.
Yep.
Where
what's the actual mechanism that's driving that down?
Yes. It's a holistic system. So one of the core issues with modernity in the left hemisphere is you can't see the entire equation, which all fits together. So if you have a sexual breakdown, that's going to have consequences on your society's political structure, on its religious structure. If the birth rate decreases, that's going to affect your society's economy. Everything's connected. And so, as an example, the Industrial Revolution was a huge causal variable here, because you removed women's reliance on men's physical labor, and you also removed the threat of starvation. But so the consequences for men are most men get hypergamied out of the pool. And hypergamy is the principle that women will naturally be attracted to the most powerful man. And again, that makes sense if you use the analogy of, if I am a peasant in a war zone, I will pick the most powerful warlord to protect me, because he is the one who is most likely to stop wandering vagrants, wandering mercenary bands from stealing my grain. Keep in mind, this is operating out of an idea of fundamental weakness in a very brutal Darwinistic evolutionary world. So it makes total sense from the sort of logic they're coming from. And when you hypergamy most men out of the pool, you end up with these sort of a huge amount of dissatisfied men, and then no one has children, because there's, of course, the mismatch between a few men who get a lot of sort of selection, and then most men who don't. And then these men don't have an incentive to get married and have kids, because their life is it's fairly satisfying. And so you don't start families in this, and it also breeds mass social distrust. And for every loss in sort of like, if you raise taxes, you'll have exponential economic decreases. Same thing as social life. If you make social interactions 20% more difficult, you're going to see an exponential decrease in social interactions. And that's why I think politeness is important to societies.
Because you're trying to alleviate some of that friction.
Yes.
Okay. So that feels like an example of wealth inequality. Wealth in this example being not, the hypergamy becomes possible because of literal wealth inequality, but then in terms of sexual mate selection opportunities, there's also a sort of wealth inequality of that as well. Okay, so that came from, I'm trying to figure out what happens when you feminize a culture, what's the pathology that we're going to start to see in men. If I just started rattling off things that I can already see right now, obviously making men and their natural proclivities problematic. So telling men not to be aggressive, telling men not to be dominant, telling men that they need to step back and let others speak, specifically women, telling men that their ambition is in and of itself problematic. And one stat that I've come across recently is, since I think the mid-90s, the number of patents that China has filed compared to America, China went from like less than 1% globally now to like 43% globally. I mean, it's insane. And America has gone from like 18% to 16% or 25 to 20, whatever. It was a drop. And that's where I'm like, these things matter. China believes in itself. China is encouraging its people to be aggressive, to be dominant, to be as ambitious as humanly possible, to grind, to train. And it really manifests. It manifests in GDP. It manifests in innovation. It manifests in progress. And so when I start looking at the problems in the US, like just looking at US versus China, when I look at that and I say, whoa, some percentage of this is due to the feminization of society.
Yeah.
That's where I've started beating the drum recently, where I'm like, no, men should not make space for anybody. Men should compete as hard as they can. You should always want an equal playing field. You should never sabotage somebody or try to hold them back. But if somebody can't outcompete you, tough shit. So it's like, you should be going all in.
I agree. I very much agree. Yeah, it's funny to talk about China because, first of all, you're assuming they're telling the truth, and they normally lie about 20% statistically. They amassed the communist province.
At least. And you have firsthand experience, my friend.
They have zero incentive to tell the truth about anything ever, forever, throughout time and space.
Absolutely. There's
no incentive to ever tell the truth. Why would they?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's about 20% of stats, or it's about 20% of total GDP. I think China in some ways is a more feminized society than America.
Yeah.
Because they've just totally let themselves get walked over by the government in the school system and like the factory system, where I follow a lot of Chinese news, and it's crazy. They have like 50% youth unemployment now.
Yep.
Whoa.
Yeah. They have a litany of issues.
And that's even with
That's if they're telling the truth. It's probably closer to 65, 70%.
But that's also with the government having employment mandates. So more people are actually employed than there is strictly calls for that employment. Does that make sense? Like they will force big businesses to hire more people than they need. Like if you can walk into a McDonald's in Wuhan at midnight and they literally have the lights off and the machines are off, but it's still open. And there's like 10 people in there. There's like 10 employees just sleeping on the floor. And you have to wake one of them up to get you a burger. It's like there's no way that McDonald's actually wants to hire those 10 people. The government just knows that they want to counteract their massive unemployment, so they give people jobs even if they just do nothing.
Get it. I get it. Oh, yeah. That also explains like the security guards in the parks that are sleeping in the parks. And yeah, I've seen a lot of those videos as well. China Observer is a good channel to watch.
China's a crazy place.
Lots of failures of major corporations. There's been protests across the country. Xi Jinping has said a lot of just like, you should literally prepare for war. And they like having really sort of like explosive rhetoric.
Yeah.
And people like to say that, but at the same time, the book I'm reading about the 20th century, people said that about Hitler and Stalin. And it's totally insane, to speak back to your earlier point, that people tried to appease Hitler. The British gave back a quarter of their fleet to Hitler to appease him, and you don't get Hitler to compromise by giving him stuff. These people have no comprehension of how predatory actors operate. Or the Western media was just writing glowing reviews of Stalin and Mao, who are even worse than Hitler. They killed like twice as many people at least. And so we just are so naive. And the only way to fight players like that is to sort of bring out our own masculinity, because appeasing monsters is not going to work. And it's just a dangerous worldview. And I think there's an element of just, there's lots of very insidious, dark, I think, instincts in there. And yeah, I think it's more dangerous than people think.
It's more dangerous from a Thucydides trap perspective. It's more dangerous from a look at even China can collapse if you allow that kind of thing. What do you mean by that?
It's dangerous on a lot of levels. I think because we're developing a lot of godlike technology now between AI, genetic engineering, the space technology, new forms of weaponry, sort of like predator drones. I'm probably forgetting a bunch.
Anduril Industries, all this is tying together. He's right. Godlike technologies.
And this technology would require a lot of masculinity to master, because we've let the genie out of the bottle. We can't go back. And so we have to sort of grab Jormungandr by its tongue. But we don't have the will or the energy for it, because we've destroyed the same masculine impulses that would allow that to happen, where there's all of these external threats. So when you destroy masculinity, you're destroying the very thing that would allow your society to reset. I just also think China is very dangerous, because I think they are significantly worse than we believe. I think we're going to look back on the things going on in China now and realize that it was like the other totalitarian regimes we slept on. I think they're probably doing very dark things.
Under the table, they're doing incredibly dark things. Especially, I think, obviously they're genociding the Uyghurs, the Xinjiang Ren, as the Chinese call it. Xinjiang Ren literally means people from Xinjiang, the Xinjiang province. But beyond that genocide, I bet, in fact, I fucking guarantee it, I'd be willing to bet the house on it, that under the table, they're doing radical genetic engineering, and they don't give a shit if they ruin the lives of 100,000 people over the course of 20 years. They're going to iron out the kinks.
Yep.
And they're going to start genetically engineering super people.
I wouldn't doubt
let's be real,
there's
like
shady
that
shit going on.
technology, that technology is right there, and all it takes is the lack of morals and ethics necessary to carry out the incredibly destructive experiments necessary over a large period of time. And the West has had this technology for decades, and we've never really used it, at least not that we know of, for exactly that reason, because we cannot make serious steps forward without at some point testing this stuff on humans. And in a country like the United States, we're just never going to accept that, especially with the Christianity still as our base, as our foundation. But the Chinese don't give a shit. They're probably just snatching homeless people off the street and experimenting on them.
Yeah, absolutely. And the absolute surveillance state they live under, the social score system.
Yeah, social credit system's insane.
Things that we don't
know. All right,
about.
home stretch here.
That would not surprise me at all. I think the big thing that's going to come out about China is that we don't understand that there's a very big difference between Deng Xiaoping and Xi Jinping. And when Mao finally died, and I don't think people realize, you've talked a lot about only having lived in the 21st century. I was alive when Mao was alive.
Yep.
So I'm like, this was recent. And he was killing people by the tens of millions. And when he died, finally, the CCP woke up and was like, okay, hold on. This is horrific. We don't want to keep going through this. And so Deng Xiaoping makes his famous quote, it doesn't matter if the cat's black or white as long as it catches mice, and being rich is glorious or wonderful, whatever he said. And so the thing I try to always remind people is, hey, capitalism is so dope that when the communists decided that they wanted to lift hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, they turned to capitalism, literally brought over Americans to teach them how to capital. And that was what brought them out. But then when Xi Jinping came into power, they didn't realize he ended they had term limits, because they didn't want to have happen what happened with Mao to happen again. And yet Xi Jinping was able to reclaim the Communist Party, make himself supreme leader. But I am hearing, and I can't validate this yet, but I am hearing rumblings coming out of China that Xi Jinping may be losing his grip on power, that he may not be meeting with Trump, partly because he's afraid he can't leave China because that they wouldn't let him back in. Now that is wild. Now you normally hear stuff like that and it ends up being whatever. People said all kinds of crazy shit about Putin 5 years ago and none of it has come to pass. So take it with a huge grain of salt. But the part that I do think we're missing is so many of us are clocking what was going on in China in the late 90s and early 2000s as what's happening now. And it's been a very different picture since Xi Jinping took over.
I've gone through sort of multiple phases of obsessive study on China. I've done it several times where for a few months, so I'll just look at everything coming out of China. And it's weird to look at the trajectory they've been on where back in the 70s, they were hardcore Maoist. It was like the Taliban today. We would perceive them the way that we perceive the Taliban now. Then they went through this liberal phase where we're going to bring in Western companies. Our major cities can be places that Western expats can comfortably live in. We'll pretend to care about stuff like the UN or free rights. Then they went through this phase in the 2010s where I remember Fareed Zakaria made this. He made this whole thing the rise of the rest, and he was championing the decline of America against the rest of the world. And there was this whole cultural moment of China's going to surpass the West, and China's doing this empire building with the Belt and Road Initiative. And I was kind of horrified at how complacent the American elite were, that so many of the American elite were totally happy with letting a Marxist state that hates us sort of rise to global predominance. Then after 2020, we saw a totally different phase of China. And I believe Peter Zeihan is fundamentally correct, although it's going to take longer, where they have really high youth unemployment. The cities are getting empty, at least from the several different sources I'm looking at, because they have such high unemployment. People are moving back to their hometowns. Because in China, there was this huge migration from the countryside to the cities. And the Communist Party is killing a lot of people. There were 2 million unaccounted for deaths for COVID.
Whoa.
Where there were 2 million deaths for unstated reasons with coffins. And
that's a lot.
They're teaching children how to do military sort of training. They openly say that America is the enemy in their propaganda. They've closed their borders for years. So China is in a very totalitarian place, and they're cracking down on their own population. And it's scary because I see the potential in China for what America could be. And
there it is. That's why it's always good to watch what's going on over there. Where are we testing all of our cameras and stuff? What's the test bed for all of our Planeteer equipment? It's right there.
If we keep going in a totalitarian direction.
Yeah, because keep in mind, we didn't know at the Holocaust at the time. We didn't know at Stalin or Mao at the time. These totalitarian governments have been very good at insulating the world from what's going on. The Uyghurs too. I mean, they've experienced horrible things.
Yeah. There's plenty of malice in the world. There's no doubt about that. This is why I bang on about free speech. If you're not willing to let people say what they say, if you're not willing to be voted out of office, then the guns come out. And there is no other way. And I don't know why people can't see that, but they really can't. All right. I want to ask you about Gen Z. You're a Gen Zer. I want to know about what is sex like for Gen Zers? What does that tell us about either the feminization of culture, where we're headed as a society? I know you're close with the guy behind HoMath.
Yeah.
So what are some of the most important HoMath equations?
Shout out HoMath.
The core variable I'd say is just lack of social trust. And that operates across the entire pyramid.
Between men and women?
Yes. Just in the entire equation. And so you have the hypergamy system where I always forget your audience is probably a different demographic than, because for the spaces I'm in, we've had this discourse for a while and everyone's seen the HoMath chart. And I realize a lot of your audience might not have seen the HoMath chart.
Yeah, my audience is older than yours.
So
awesome. I don't know if I have this one. I have the levels and I have
Keeper, sleeper, sweeper. Yeah.
Yeah, I have the other one, the one that shows where you don't want to go and where you do want to go when you build a relationship. But I don't have the keeper, sleeper, sweeper one. I think this one's part of his package deal.
80% of men, 80% of women go to 20% of men. And that's due to the structure of the dating apps, where a majority of relationships among Gen Z are formed online. And it's an important thing to realize Gen Z doesn't really leave the house. Partly because they're not wealthy enough, and partly because they have social anxiety or everyone's on their phone. So most relationships are formed online, and that's a fairly, how do I explain this? That's very shallow and dehumanizing.
Yeah.
And with the way it works as well, with the inequality, is you have a lot of incentives for low social trust, either between sort of the Chad guys who have lots of options, and then that brings down the value of the individual women who they're cycling through. So you have a large disenfranchised population. You have a loss of social trust due to sort of the incentive structure. And because there's no community with the way social media works and dating apps work.
And then the hypergamy reward structure. Being hypergamous, they're just running around. They're getting rewards everywhere.
Yeah,
and then you just
there's really no reason for them to not act the way they're acting. There's no countering force.
No, there's no countering force.
Be eating at the equation, where you have a significant portion of Gen Z women, I think some men too, who have basically just checked out, who are radical left or lesbian or something like that. And no, I'm not making this up. So that's why young people don't have children.
That is, that's wild. Okay, so if you were going to try to unwind some of this, like if, I don't know if you just are black pilled and it's like there's nowhere we can go, or if you feel like is this we got to rechampion religion? Is this, obviously we've already talked about economics, so I'll assume you'll say we got to resolve some of those issues. But other than the economics, like how would we unwind this if you gave us a generation or two generations? What are the things that would need to be true for us to renormalize?
I agree in the economic. After that, I'd say just a return of masculinity, because the issue with a lot of sort of religious conservatives is they want to bring back a rule structure for religion without really reference to God or sort of the masculine enforcement. Because the way, if you study sort of like, I have multiple sources of information, but conservative authors of a century ago or ancient wisdom would say that the first step in this is to increase masculinity, and then that has a frame for femininity, because masculinity is based off respect.
Masculinity will create a frame for the feminine to basically live inside of?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, you were about to think, I think you're about to go into more detail on that. Please explain.
So the masculine sets the frame, it's like iron, and the feminine's like water. It flows through the frame the masculine sets. And so this is why women don't build social institutions. Boom. Or why they don't sort of drive the course of human history directly in the way men do, but they do drive it indirectly. And there are exceptions like Joan of Arc or Catherine of Russia. And so just trying to enforce religious rules without masculinity means no one will respect them. But I'd say two things. First, increase masculinity, because
like, how do we do that? Like, eat more fucking Brazil nuts? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, it's a difficult question, because industrial civilization solves so many of our problems. But we're going to have a lot of problems very soon. And the masculine is doing and the feminine is being. And so when men do things that garner respect, because the masculine is formed by respect, and the feminine is garnered by love. So women will love men they respect. But the issue is that in our current society, we make it nigh impossible to produce men that women respect, because the feminine group sort of herd mentality is envious that other women may get men they respect. And this is my mate suppression video. So they stop men from rising to positions of respect.
There we go.
That's wild.
It's-
Give
it's-
people a quick primer
And emasculate us.
on mate suppression. It's a great video.
Thank you. So this is one of the very twisted parts of human nature. And one of the things I've learned in the last few years is that we think evolution's simple, and we think that life is sort of it's rational, it fits in a spreadsheet. But life can periodically be very twisted, where you've got the fungi that go into an ant's brain and eat it and take control of the ant. You have horrible diseases that spread through like syphilis is pretty twisted. And mate suppression is one of the most twisted biological impulses, where it exists across both sexes, but it's more heavily a part of toxic femininity. And it's the impulse to hurt other people who are potentially doing better than me by lessening their fertility.
Jesus.
And examples of it include, there was so much of this stuff when I was growing up. The second point I'd say for fixing the sexual duality is you have to stop dehumanizing men, and you have to stop dehumanizing children as well. Because when I was growing up, there were people who had pressure to put their kids in after school programs. And if you didn't watch your kids play all the time, you could have the police called on you, or, there was the whole thing. The government passed a bill. You had to put in a certain type of car seat to have children.
Well, not only that, but isn't his generation over medicated with fucking ADHD meds?
Dude, my generation was. Me and nearly all of my peers at some point were either pressured to get on them or were prescribed them with effectively zero testing.
Just fucked you all up.
My mom viciously pushed back against doctors and teachers for years and years. And all that did was delay it until I got to high school.
Fuck. Yeah. Every kind of way to manipulate society and suppress who we were, we are as men.
Little boys acting the way that little boys act was considered unacceptable behavior. And that was somehow a justification to dope up an entire generation.
Yeah. It's disgusting.
And it saved an amount of lives I could count on one hand, and it stopped 200,000 births, because the cost of having the car or the seat for that, people couldn't afford it. And if you want other examples, socialism is taking from others, putting it in the central pot. It's just, or trying to make silly rules about silly dating rules, or when people make silly rules, they're normally for mate suppression, because if the rule doesn't serve an actual purpose, the purpose is to hurt you.
Boom.
That is a very dark place to end.
And who's controlling the dating market right now? The people that want to hurt others.
This interview. Rudyard, where can people follow along with you?
Check out my two channels, What If Altist and History 102. And thank you. This was a wonderful episode.
Absolutely awesome.
It was very good.
Man.
I hope he collaborates with HoMath in the future.
Yeah.
Because they have a lot of back and forth on X, but I don't think they have any back and forth long form. That'd be good to see.
It would. It really, really would. Brother, I think it's time to close out. That was, we do what we do. We hang out and we just let our minds go. We've got plenty to talk about. We'll be here again, I'm sure, soon.
Yeah. And, I've been away for a long time. Sorry about that. Let's try to make this regular.
Yeah. At least once a month.
Once a month podcast. I can absolutely do that with my suit. Why don't you get a suit, you fucking bum?
I'm going to put a jacket on next time. I just came from a formal function. I had my 3-piece on. I went and dressed down. See? So yeah, we'll do jackets next time.
Sounds good, brother.
All righty, man. All right, to everybody out there, thank you so much for joining us. We'll figure out a title. Maybe we'll stay with heavy hitters. I don't know. Me and the guys will put our heads together and come up with maybe a title for the show. Otherwise, you guys will meet us here on his channel on the Rican channel? Rican Muslim? Yeah, Rican Muslim channel. We'll put all the links and things in the description.
Thank you, everybody, for watching.
All right, everybody. Have a good night. Thank you so much. Peace.